What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn in Naruto as an UCHIHA and SUKUNA'S Jinchuriki? Part 2. If you enjoy this type of content, please continuously the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Remember to check out the original story linked in the description. Let's get into the rise of the strongest Uchiha in history without further ado. As the blade light dissipated, it was as if nothing had happened. Pakura's body remained intact, but the fireballs surrounding her gradually extinguished. It was as if her life had been extinguished along with them. This legendary female shinobi, who was supposed to gain fame during the Third Great Ninja War and die later in that conflict, had quietly passed away without a sound. Was it a strike aimed at consciousness? So, Kagami, is your technique a form of in release? Minato asked, walking over. Most shinobi only knew of 5 chakra elements, but thanks to Jiraiya's teachings, Minato was aware that there were 7 types of chakra. In addition to the usual wind, fire, water, earth and lightning, there were yin and yang as well. His girlfriend, Kushina, was one of the leading figures in yang release, known for her massive chakra reserves and extraordinary physical constitution. Yin release, on the other hand, was best represented by the Uchiha. Kagami nodded and sat down to begin recovering chakra. With his current chakra reserves, such a technique could only be used 2 or 3 times at most. You developed this technique to deal with me, didn't you? Sukuna's cold voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Though he had learned the technique from Sukuna, its effect was similar to Unlimited Void, and the intention behind it was too obvious. Kagami didn't deny it and replied indifferently, "The Sharingan's specialty is copying. If it seems similar, then it is." He was, of course, on guard against Sukuna. The seal was strong, and there was no sign of Sukuna breaking free. But Kagami had to consider, what if Sukuna escapes? Ordinary ninja techniques wouldn't work on him. Only techniques that could directly attack the soul would be effective. Not only Sukuna but most shinobi feared soul-based attacks. Otherwise, the soul conversion jutsu wouldn't be regarded as the #1 assassination technique. Pakura of Sunagakure's Scorch Release. "I've heard of her," Kakashi remarked, impressed. "Not bad, Kagami," Kakashi continued. "Kakashi, I preferred the way you were before, wild and unruly." Minato chuckled and clapped both of them on the shoulders. "Excellent debut on the battlefield. Both of you did well." "I thought you'd say capturing her alive would be more valuable," Kagami responded, brushing Minato's hand off with indifference. Minato shook his head. "I wouldn't ask you to capture enemies alive. That would increase unnecessary risks. Listen up." His tone became serious, and his expression hardened. "On the battlefield, ensuring your own safety is the most important thing. Understood." "Understood," Kakashi said, his energy returning. After a short rest and recovering some chakra with Sukuna's cursed energy, Kagami felt ready to move on. The technique he had just used was a form of yin release. It required more mental energy, but supplementing chakra with pure mental force sped up the recovery. The Nine Tails was an excellent battery for him, being a balance of both yin and yang, with both physical and mental energy healing rapidly. Kagami had collected a bit of the Nine Tails chakra when Kushina went berserk last time. Although it wasn't much, it was still enough to provide a small amount of chakra, about 10 cards, if compared to Kakashi's chakra capacity. Normally, Kagami would reserve this chakra for studying yin-yang release, unwilling to waste it on basic ninja techniques. Fire Country Border Command Center. Orochimaru stared at the group that had returned after half a day, initially thinking they were here to ask for intel on their mission objectives. However, dozens of complete Sunagakure shinobi corpses lay across the command center. A ninja from the Yamanaka clan began inspecting the bodies. "The brains are intact. We should be able to extract some intelligence." One of the Nara clan members, his pineapple-shaped hair standing on end, knelt by Pakura's body. "This is Pakura of Sunagakure, a bloodline user. Why doesn't she have any wounds?" "It's genjutsu," Orochimaru's cold gaze turned toward Kagami, a twisted smile spreading across his face. Let me guess. Kagami, you're the one who killed her. No wounds. Just using genjutsu to kill a bloodline-empowered jonin? You're stronger than I thought. Upon hearing this, the Yamanaka ninja looked up from the corpse. Uchiha. Kagami, was it? Did your genjutsu destroy her brain? It should have burned it. You can check yourself. Kagami shrugged, not fully aware of the technique's effects, as it was the first time he had used it on a human. He wasn't particularly concerned with the information in Pakura's brain. If he wanted to know something, he could simply use his Sharingan to hypnotize her, much easier. The Yamanaka clan's techniques were nothing more than a side note to the myriad abilities of the Sharingan. After they took the bodies away, the command center was back to its usual state, with only 4 people present. Minato bowed at 90 degrees. Orochimaru, my apologies. Please forgive Kagami's rudeness. Orochimaru's gaze was chilling, his voice betraying no emotion. This is no simple disrespect, Kagami. Attacking the frontline commander. You do realize your actions might warrant interrogation by the Umbu. Kagami remained unfazed. Let's not forget, you were the one who looked at me with such ill intent. Being controlled by an 8-year-old with genjutsu, Orochimaru, do you still have any face left to talk about it? I'll only report to the Hokage. He'll be considerate of my position. Orochimaru leaned forward, his presence predatory, like a snake preparing to strike. Some of the old ones are very wary of the Uchiha clan. If they knew the extent of your power, how would they sleep at night? Are you threatening me? Maybe. What will you do, Kagami? Kagami leaned in close to Orochimaru, their cold eyes locked. If you want to play, play it bigger. Because of your actions, I've been forced to leave Konoha, and at least several hundred Uchiha will follow me. Orochimaru sneered. Kagami, don't you know? Even the strongest Uchiha in history left the village without taking anyone with him. That's because, at the time, the clan didn't know how much they were being held back. After a brief silence, Orochimaru suddenly laughed. It really isn't fair, is it? A clan so powerful, yet denied their rightful position. Kagami, if I become Hokage, how about I train you to be the next one? Hokage. It could be said that every Konoha shinobi's dream was to become Hokage. However, only a few could persist all the way to the end. If anyone else said this, it would be nothing more than empty promises, but coming from Orochimaru, it held weight. With the third Hokage aging, and with Fugaku's defection, neither Jiraiya nor Tsunade were interested in the position. Orochimaru was the de facto next Hokage candidate. Only Kagami knew that Minato would eventually overtake him. Let's talk once you actually become Hokage, Kagami said bluntly, giving no face to the sneaky snake. The Uchiha clan's natural rudeness aside, Kagami knew that Orochimaru didn't care about others' opinions. Hearing this, Minato awkwardly scratched his head. Haha, I still have a long way to go. But I will definitely become Hokage. He said this while secretly lowering his hand that had been forming seals earlier. Earlier, in the tense standoff, he had been prepared to help Kagami silence Orochimaru. It couldn't be helped. Konoha couldn't bear the consequences of the Uchiha clan defecting. Minato realized that if Kagami and Orochimaru had a falling out, the damage to the village would be immeasurable. Fortunately, Orochimaru was only joking. Otherwise, for the stability of the village, Minato might have had to kill Orochimaru. For the village. This was the lesson from the third Hokage. Orochimaru had no idea that his death omen had been fluctuating wildly. He hadn't intended to report anything yet. Right now, what he truly wanted to see was how much power Kagami could demonstrate on this battlefield. In just half a day, he had already gotten his first surprise. Scorch Release. There would be more to deal with tonight. While the information about Scorch Release was interesting, it was the young Uchiha Kagami before him that truly captured Orochimaru's attention. After the group left, Orochimaru summoned his subordinates back in Konoha through a summoning snake and gathered more detailed information about Kagami. Previously, all he knew was that this young boy had awakened the 3-Tomo Sharingan at an early age. Orochimaru had seen plenty of 3-Tomo Sharingan users before, and while impressive, they were not extraordinary. But Kagami's ocular power clearly surpassed that of ordinary 3-Tomo Sharingan users by a significant margin. Orochimaru even suspected that Kagami might have already awakened the legendary Mangekyo Sharingan. Kagami made no effort to conceal his abilities. His unparalleled Uchiha swordsmanship, his ability to assist in sealing the Nine Tails during its rampage using his ocular power, and his mastery of the A-rank jutsu developed by Minato within just 2 days. He excelled in ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. Additionally, Kagami possessed an invisible slashing technique with power akin to a Kekki Genkai. Coupled with his cold and decisive personality, such a person, unless there was overwhelming raw power to suppress him, even Orochimaru couldn't think of a strategy to defeat him. Poison or ambush. Such tricks were laughable under the watchful eyes of the Sharingan. If I summon Manda, could I take him down? Orochimaru even began considering using his trump card. About the jutsu you used to kill Pakura, Kagami. What's its upper limit? Orochimaru asked. I'm not trying to pry into the secrets of your technique, Orochimaru clarified with an eerie smile. It's for better mission planning. After a moment of thought, Kagami replied. If the opponent isn't prepared, it should be capable of killing an elite Jonin. Strictly speaking, even the Hokage is only an elite Jonin. Orochimaru's golden eyes narrowed. A technique with such lethal potential upon first encounter, was it wise to use it so early? Ninjutsu is developed to be used, Kagami said dismissively. There's no need to keep it hidden. Orochimaru, I suggest you don't place too much emphasis on this technique. He leaned forward slightly, staring directly into Orochimaru's eyes with faint amusement. By the time you figure out how to counter it, I'll have iterated on it several times over. This is the confidence of a true genius. Orochimaru murmured, ending the topic with a sly smile. Changing the subject, he asked, Minato, Kagami, what do you think? Why has Sunagakure suddenly increased its infiltration of the Land of Fire? Based on the intel we have, it seems they're searching for someone. Who could be worth such effort? It's the third Kazekage. The voice didn't belong to Kagami. He wasn't foolish enough to divulge such critical information. Instead, it came from a bloodied silver-haired man who lifted the curtain of the command tent and stepped inside. Tsukumo-senpai. Hataki-senpai. Even Orochimaru was startled, noticing the numerous wounds covering Tsukumo's body. The most severe was on his wrist, where nearly half of his hand had been severed. Tsukumo's face was pale as his gaze landed on his stunned son. It's been a while, Kakashi. Thud. Unable to suppress his emotions, Kakashi dashed forward and threw himself into his father's arms, sobbing silently. Tsukumo gently patted Kakashi's back with his uninjured hand, his eyes full of love and guilt. No matter the circumstances, Kakashi was still just a child. Abandoning him by leaving the village had been deeply unfair. After the emotional reunion between father and son, Orochimaru pressed for details. Tsukumo, what do you mean by the third Kazekage? Suddenly, a Nara clan ninja burst into the tent without announcement. The news he carried was too critical to wait. Orochimaru-sama. The intel from Yamanaka Yuan. It confirms that they're searching for the missing third Kazekage. He trailed off, noticing Tsukumo's presence. Orochimaru frowned and gestured toward him. Guard the entrance and ensure no one else comes in. Turning back to Tsukumo, Orochimaru continued, please go on. Compared to the fragmented intel extracted from the Sunagakure shinobi, Orochimaru was far more interested in what Tsukumo had to say. He was also curious about what could have left the legendary White Fang in such a state. I encountered Sunagakure Sasori, Chiyo's grandson. The genius puppeteer, I've heard of him. Skipping over unnecessary explanations, Tsukumo's next words plunged the tent into a chilling silence. He assassinated the third Kazekage and turned both himself and the Kazekage into human puppets. I fought him. It ended in a stalemate, and he managed to escape. So that's the situation. Kakashi muttered, glancing at his father's battered state. Then if we tell Sunagakure about this, they'll abandon the war to hunt down Sasori, right? Only Kakashi was naive enough to believe such a thing. Orochimaru shook his head. Without the Kazekage puppet's body as evidence, Sunagakure won't believe us. They'd assume we not only killed the Kazekage but also Sasori. Even if they did believe us, it wouldn't help, Minato interjected, his quick mind connecting the dots. Chiyo is a shrewd strategist. If she hears this, she'll claim it's a Konoha ploy to sow discord within Sunagakure. She'd escalate the conflict, shifting their efforts from searching for the Kazekage to seeking vengeance against Konoha. Kagami chuckled. glancing at Kakashi. The best way to redirect internal conflict is to turn it outward. Beyond just combat skill, Kakashi felt his intellect was also being overshadowed. Sensing his son's dejection, Sukumo gently ruffled Kakashi's hair. "What happens next is up to you. I only came to deliver this intel before leaving." "Leaving? Father, where are you going?" Sukumo sighed and smiled faintly. "Sasori's target is me. As long as I leave the land of fire, he'll follow." Above all, Sukumo feared Sasori might target Kakashi. Anyone who dared assassinate the Kazekage and succeed was too dangerous to ignore. Orochimaru frowned. "There's no need for a sacrificial move. To me, Sukumo-senpai, you're worth far more than both the third Kazekage and Sasori combined. I can leverage this intel to clear your name. There's no need to remain in exile." Truthfully, Orochimaru hoped for Sukumo's return. The legendary White Fang had aided him, Tsunade, and Jiraiya on the battlefield numerous times. After Sukumo's departure, Tsunade had been so enraged she refused to speak with Hiruzen, and even Orochimaru and Jiraiya had harbored grievances against the third Hokage. Anyone with insight could see the truth behind what had happened. Sukumo shook his head, smiling faintly. "There's no need. I've grown used to this life. Freedom feels good." "Is that so?" Orochimaru didn't press further, choosing to respect Sukumo's wishes. "Father, I want to." Sukumo silenced Kakashi with a hand gesture, crouching to meet his son's gaze. "When you've grown into a capable shinobi, you can decide your own path." He turned to Minato and Kagami. "Minato, Kagami, please take care of him. I trust you both with Kakashi." "Sukumo-senpai, I promise to protect Kakashi," Minato said firmly. Konoha was second only to Kushina in Minato's heart. He deeply respected this great ninja who had given so much for the village. Kagami turned to Orochimaru. "Now that we know this intel, what's your plan?" Orochimaru's tongue instinctively flicked out, his expression dark and predatory. "Strike Sunagakure while they're leaderless and make them feel true pain." "An excellent choice," Kagami replied with a satisfied nod. If the elders back in Konoha were in charge, they might have tried to use this information to negotiate peace with Sunagakure. Orochimaru, ignoring protocol, directly included Minato's squad in the strategic planning. After seeing Sukumo Hatake off, Orochimaru summoned several frontline jonin, including a squad captain from the Umbu, Sarutobi Shinnosuke, the eldest son of the third Hokage. As the overall frontline commander, Orochimaru wielded significant authority. Shinnosuke's role was akin to that of a military supervisor, ensuring major decisions were aligned with Konoha's directives. In the meeting, Shinnosuke did not wear his Umbu mask. He was a young man bearing a striking resemblance to his father in his youth. Once Orochimaru laid out the situation, he began explaining his plan. Sunagakure has dispatched a large number of shinobi to infiltrate and disrupt the Fire Nation's borders. Handling them piecemeal is too passive. I propose concentrating our forces and launching a counterattack into the Wind Nation. This would force Sunagakure to retreat and defend their home territory. After a moment of silence, a jonin from the Nara clan voiced his concern. "This could indeed force Sunagakure to withdraw from our borders, but Orochimaru-sama, if we leave the border thinly defended, Iwagakure won't miss the opportunity to strike." The Fire Nation, centrally located among the 5 great nations, has always been the primary target in any ninja war. Each conflict essentially boils down to the Fire Nation against the other 4. If only Sunagakure were involved, the Fire Nation wouldn't be overly concerned. With Konoha's strength, they could handle Sunagakure with ease. But the Western Front, where Orochimaru was stationed, faced not only Sunagakure but also Iwagakure to the north. Inoki, the Tsuchikage, would undoubtedly exploit any opening to send his forces into the Fire Nation if Konoha's attention shifted too heavily towards Sunagakure. Orochimaru turned to Minato. "I recall you encountering Iwagakure's Jinchuriki before. How capable are they?" Typically, Kage-level figures wouldn't appear on the front line unless it was a large-scale battle. Protecting the village always took precedence. Thus, in conventional warfare, Jinchuriki served as the highest-tier weapons. Minato thought for a moment before responding. "They're incredibly powerful, primarily because they excel at wide-area attacks. For them, numbers don't matter much." The tailed beasts by Jidama was akin to a cannon in an age of cold weapons. While top-tier ninja might handle tailed beasts with ease, ordinary shinobi, Even elite ones like Tsukumo would struggle against them. The only reliable method to deal with tailed beasts was through sealing jutsu. While the Mangekyo Sharingan could also control tailed beasts, this information was not widely known. Orochimaru nodded. Based on the intelligence I've gathered, Inoki has concentrated his forces along the Earth Lightning border, leaving fewer troops on this front. He clearly doesn't think Lightning Country is stronger than the Fire Nation. The only logical explanation is that his Jinchuriki are stationed along the Earth-Fire border. At this revelation, the room grew tense. The mere mention of Jinchuriki instilled unease in most shinobi. Minato, are you capable of handling a Jinchuriki right now? Minato didn't rush to answer, carefully weighing his capabilities. I can stall one for a time, but Jinchuriki typically don't act alone. The Earth Nation's Jinchuriki, those of the 4 tails and 5 tails, often worked in tandem. Minato and Jiraiya had encountered them together before. This coordination was standard. No village would deploy such critical assets separately. Orochimaru then looked at Kagami. I believe Kagami can handle one as well. I'll leave the regular Iwagakure shinobi to others. The 2 Jinchuriki will be your responsibility. Before Kagami could respond, a loud voice interrupted. What nonsense is this? Sarutobi Shinnosuke slammed the table, glaring at Orochimaru. Orochimaru, you expect a child to face a Jinchuriki? What are you thinking? Normally, Shinnosuke refrained from intervening in tactical discussions, content to observe. But Orochimaru's proposal was so outrageous it pushed him past his limits, stripping away any formality. He had inherited his father's ideology of the will of fire, and was already uncomfortable with children like Kagami and Kakashi being sent to the front lines. In his eyes, no matter how exceptional Kagami was, he was still a child. I've already filed several requests to recall these 2 from the front lines. I've yet to hear back from the Hokage. New recruits shouldn't be subjected to this kind of danger. Shinnosuke continued, his voice filled with genuine concern. Asuma often talks about you too. I know you're exceptionally talented, far beyond ordinary kids, but you cannot understand the horrors of war. Please, return to safety. Even Minato began questioning whether his 2 younger comrades should remain on the battlefield. Kagami, however, had no such thoughts. If not for his ambitions for the Uchiha clan, he wouldn't be here at all. He deeply understood the cruelty of war and the value of peace. But peace would never come from compromise. Only through resistance could true peace be won. Kagami's calm voice broke the silence. Thank you for your concern, Sarutobi Jonin. But I am a shinobi of Konoha. I will follow Orochimaru-sama's orders. Turning to Orochimaru, he added, with great power comes great responsibility. Given the village's current crisis, I request that a portion of Uchiha shinobi be deployed to support the front lines. Is that acceptable? War was a catalyst for the Sharingan. The higher-ups in Konoha knew this well. Unless absolutely necessary, they sought to confine the Uchiha within the village, preventing them from unleashing their power on the battlefield. Their caution wasn't unfounded. It stemmed from the judgment passed down by the second Hokage. During the latter half of the Third Shinobi War, when the Uchiha were finally allowed to participate, it led to the awakening of Fugaka's Mangekyo, and later the Mangekyo awakenings of Shursui and Itachi. Not to mention the emergence of Kamui, the most powerful Mangekyo technique. Orochimaru didn't fully understand the conditions for the Sharingan's evolution, but he keenly sensed that Kagami wasn't as selfless as he appeared. Not that it mattered. Orochimaru cared little for Konoha's political scheming. His sole interest lay in seeing how far Kagami could go. I'll report to the Hokage and request Uchiha reinforcements. He cast a meaningful glance at Kagami. Prepare a list, Kagami. No one knows better than you which Uchiha are most suitable for the battlefield. The 2 had reached an unspoken agreement. Orochimaru would push for the Uchiha to join the war, and Kagami would secure the rear. Even if the rear collapsed, Konoha was at its peak strength, boasting the highest number of Jonin in its history. No one could have foreseen that this war, lasting over a decade, would drag Konoha into the depths of exhaustion. It wasn't the war itself but the deaths of Minato, the departure of the Sannin, and the subsequent events, like Hizashi's sacrifice, that nearly tore Konoha apart. Orochimaru, however, felt confident in his gambit. Konoha's resources were still abundant. In an unknown underground chamber, an ancient and frail man leaned back on a stone chair. Tendrils extended from his back into the unseen depths of darkness. His crimson eyes shone like those of a god of death, but his name once invoked even greater fear than death itself. The legendary ninja, UCHIHA Madara. A white mass emerged from the ground, breaking the silence. Lord Madara. The fighting has begun. The leaf and sand are clashing on the border, and the other villages seem to be stirring as well. A raspy chuckle filled with disdain echoed through the chamber. This is the nature of the ninja world. Even if we do nothing, humans will never coexist peacefully. Hashirama, the illusion of peace you created has utterly collapsed after your death. Oh no, Madara-sama was starting another of his one-sided conversations with Senju Hashirama. White Zetsu waited patiently until Madara finished his tirade. Did you complete the task I gave you? Madara asked. White Zetsu pulled out a piece of paper with several names and brief profiles. As you instructed, I've gathered intelligence on Uchiha children aged 5 to 10. Here's the list. The first name on the list was Uchiha Kagami, a prodigy who awakened the 3-tomo Sharingan at the age of 7. Even in the Warring States era, Madara had rarely encountered such talent. But he wasn't impressed. Progressing quickly was less important than enduring long-term. Madara's extensive knowledge of the Sharingan told him that early awakening didn't guarantee great power. In fact, it often indicated the opposite. The more he analyzed the list, the less confident he became in Kagami's suitability. The boy was too calm and calculating. Even if tragedy struck his loved ones, Madara suspected Kagami wouldn't succumb to hatred, at least not in the way required to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. Madara's gaze settled on another name, Uchiha Obito. Unlike Kagami, Obito was filled with emotion, brimming with kindness and naivety. Such feelings, once shattered by loss, could give rise to immeasurable hatred. The key to awakening the Mangekyo lies in profound loss, Madara murmured. The more one loves, the greater the hatred they gain in return. Such is the curse of the Uchiha. Madara issued his orders. Focus on Obito. Investigate his life thoroughly. Find out what he treasures most. Roger. But honestly, Madara-sama, don't you think Kagami would make a better heir? White Zetsu interjected. If I didn't know you were still alive, I'd have thought he was your reincarnation. That overwhelming talent. Silence, Madara growled. True Uchiha power doesn't lie in 3-tomo eyes or flashy ninjutsu. Obito has potential far greater than Kagami. After a pause, Madara softened his stance slightly. Send a clone to make contact with Kagami as well. He can serve as a backup. The comparison to Kagami lingered in Madara's mind. His resemblance to Izuna, both in appearance and swordsmanship, was uncanny. Could there really be something like reincarnation? The Hokage's office with tensions rising, Danzo Shimura was busy scheming behind the scenes, sowing discord among the other villages. Advisors Koharu Yuditane and Hamuramito Kato had also left for the Fire Daimyo's court to secure additional wartime resources. Everyone recognized the signs. The Third Shinobi War was inevitable. The Hokage's office was thick with smoke as Hiruzen Sarutobi studied reports from the front lines. The request to deploy Uchiha to the battlefield weighed heavily on his mind. Among Konoha's leadership, Hiruzen harbored the least prejudice against the Uchiha, but that didn't mean he was free of it. He wanted to wield the Uchiha like a blade, but feared the consequences if that blade grew too sharp and turned against him. From Jiraiya's observations, Kagami's heart wasn't inherently evil. However, it was evident that Kagami cared more about the Uchiha clan than the village. This narrow-minded clan loyalty. Hiruzen muttered. It was this very trait that disqualified Kagami from ever holding significant power in the village. Even so, Orochimaru's plan presented an opportunity. If successful, it could end the conflict with the Wind Nation and possibly delay the onset of a full-scale war. The prospect of peace was too tempting. After a long deliberation, Hiruzen summoned a subordinate. Prepare the Uchiha listed here for deployment to the Western Front. Hiruzen had modified Orochimaru's proposed list, excluding the most radical Uchiha members and adding some moderates, including Uchiha Fugaku. Hiruzen had spoken with Fugaku in depth before. He believed Fugaku didn't want to deepen the rift between the village and the Uchiha and was willing to compromise to maintain stability. As the sun set, Hiruzen met privately with Fugaku. After some polite exchanges, Hiruzen cut to the chase. Fugaku, what do you think of Kagami? Fugaku hesitated briefly before replying. He's an exceptionally talented ninja who treats his family and friends kindly. He's a remarkable child. Despite their past conflict, Fugaku wouldn't speak ill of Kagami in front of outsiders. Hiruzen exhaled a cloud of smoke. He's kind to his clan, but only to them, correct? Lord Hokage. Hiruzen raised a hand to stop him. I had Jiraiya take Kagami as a disciple because I saw his potential. But over a year has passed, and it seems his mindset hasn't changed. He remains distant from the rest of the village. Fugaku broke into a cold sweat, offering the usual platitude. Lord Hokage, he's still a child. Perhaps he simply struggles to express himself. You know that's not what I want to hear. Hiruzen's decades of authority bore down on Fugaku, making him feel like a scolded student. I will do everything I can to change Kagami's perspective, Fugaku promised, bowing low. I'll help him build bonds with the village. Hiruzen's stern expression softened into a smile. I'm counting on you, Fugaku. A few days later, Uchiha Fugaku arrived with a group of 50 Uchiha shinobi. Each was at least at the 2 Tomo Sharingan level, and among them were 7 with 3 Tomo Sharingan, including Fugaku himself. This force alone was enough to turn the tide of a small-scale battle. Fugaku, you're here. Minato greeted him warmly, and for once, Fugaku's usually stern face softened into a rare smile. The two had worked together on missions in the past and shared a deep camaraderie. It was largely because of Minato's influence that Fugaku believed it was possible for the Uchiha clan to integrate into the village. However, upon Fugaku's arrival, dozens of Uchiha shinobi immediately moved to stand behind Uchiha Kagami, clearly separating themselves from Fugaku's group. The atmosphere turned tense. Fugaku's face twitched in frustration. Despite being the clan head, his authority was blatantly challenged. These shinobi could have at least waited before taking a side so openly. Kagami glanced at the group that had aligned themselves with him. They were mostly younger shinobi, with only one possessing a 3 Tomo Sharingan. Genka, how's Elder Kamika's health? Kagami addressed the young man with a 3 Tomo Sharingan. Thank you for your concern. My father is doing well. Genka, Kamika's son, held the same ideals as his father. His respect for Kagami as the heir to Kamika's faction was apparent. Like Kamika, Genka firmly believed Kagami was the one to lead the Uchiha clan to greatness. The Uchiha clan had grown increasingly divided. While Fugaku advocated for integrating with the village, Kagami's unparalleled talent and growing strength made him a natural rallying point for those dissatisfied with the status quo. This division left the higher-ups of Konoha, particularly Hiruzen Sarutobi, uneasy. I arranged for Jiraiya to mentor you, and yet you still don't trust the village? Hiruzen often lamented. What more could you possibly want? Fugaku was equally baffled. The Hokage had sent a clear message of trust. If Kagami merely played along and acted more approachable, he could even have a shot at becoming Hokage one day. Kagami, of course, knew better. No matter how much the Uchiha did, in the minds of the Hokage and his advisors, the clan would always be a threat. That prejudice stemmed from the teachings of the second Hokage. Explaining further was pointless. Fugaku's presence only confirmed his alignment with the Hokage's camp, just as Kagami had predicted. There was no need to preserve Fugaku's dignity. According to Lord Orochimaru's orders, all Uchiha shinobi will follow my commands, Kagami stated plainly. No problem, right, clan head Fugaku? Fugaku's face darkened, but he managed to nod, though his voice betrayed his irritation. Of course. On the battlefield, all shinobi must follow orders. The word orders carried a sharp edge. If Kagami wanted to assert dominance, Fugaku would respond in kind. Pulling out a scroll, Fugaku added coldly, by Hokage-sama's decree, you are to follow my orders. Kagami chuckled. My apologies, but the battlefield allows for exceptions. A commander in the field is not bound by orders from afar. I don't trust your ability to lead. In emergencies, I'll rely on my own judgment. You. A moment ago, Kagami had invoked Orochimaru's name to assert authority, yet now he dismissed the Hokage's decree outright? Minato, sensing the tension, stepped in to mediate. We're all comrades of the Leaf. Let's focus on our shared goal of defending the border. Specific actions can be determined based on the situation. Fortunately, both Kagami and Fugaku respected Minato enough to let the matter drop. In the command tent, Minato spread out a map and pointed to a location in the northwest of the Land of Grass. I've scouted the terrain. This is a choke point that any large-scale Iwagakure force would have to pass through. The location he indicated was a bridge, soon to become one of the most famous landmarks in the ninja world, Canopy Bridge. If we station forces here, we can block any large-scale movements by Iwagakure, Minato explained. I'll also leave Flying Thunder God markers along the border. If a small group of powerful enemies takes another route, I can quickly respond. Flying Thunder God made many strategic options viable. For now, Iwagakure had not made any significant moves, and only small skirmishes occurred in the Land of Grass. Neither Minato nor the others gave much thought to the concerns of the small country. Why don't we just blow up the bridge? Kagami suggested casually. After all, he knew that in the original timeline, the bridge would eventually be destroyed. Minato sighed. This bridge is a critical transportation link. Destroying it unprovoked would be seen as a declaration of war against Iwagakure. Since the First Shinobi War, Konoha had never initiated war against another village. Destroying Canopy Bridge would be unprecedented. Kagami shrugged, dropping the topic. But his thoughts drifted elsewhere. If the Canopy Bridge battle is set to happen, does that mean Madara is already in the Land of Grass? It was possible. The Outer Path Golem wasn't easy to move, so Madara was likely nearby. Kagami wasn't particularly worried about encountering Madara. The legendary Uchiha was old and far from his prime, with his Rinnegan already transplanted into Nagato. Besides, Madara had never killed an Uchiha. Even during his final battle with Sasuke, he had offered the younger Uchiha a chance to surrender. Madara's disdain for the Uchiha clan didn't extend to outright extermination. If not for Black Zetsu's machinations, Kagami might have considered approaching Madara for an alliance. After much deliberation, Minato, Kagami, and Fugaku were assigned to lead 5 elite shinobi to defend Canopy Bridge. Sarutobi Shinosuke and other forces would remain on the border as a precaution. The group departed and encountered only minor resistance from Iwagakure and Kusagakure shinobi. Claiming to be on a mission, they passed through the Land of Grass without incident and reached Canopy Bridge. For now, the situation was calm, but they all knew the peace wouldn't last. Once news of Orochimaru's assault on the Wind Nation spread, Iwagakure would inevitably make its move. And then, the storm would come. 30 kilometers ahead, a team of Iwagakure shinobi is approaching rapidly. Among them, at least 3 have chakra levels comparable to Jonin, with around 30 Chunin and Genin level shinobi. Atop Canopy Bridge, Minato Namikaze knelt, placing his hand on the ground as he spoke with a calm, focused tone. Chakra Sensory Technique. The Flying Thunder God technique was an incredibly complex jutsu, far surpassing the difficulty of most S-rank techniques. If Minato had spent the same amount of time developing a Kekii Genkai instead of mastering Flying Thunder God, he might have created one by now. However, Flying Thunder God was far superior to most Kekii Genkai. One prerequisite for learning it was having exceptional sensory abilities. Minato couldn't teach Flying Thunder God directly, but he did teach Kagami the Chakra Sensory technique. Currently, Kagami's sensory range was limited to 10 kilometers, far less than Minato's. This was simply a difference in innate talent. It seems Lord Orochimaru's invasion of the Land of Wind has been exposed, Minato said, his expression grave. I wonder how the battle is progressing on his side. Don't worry, Minato. Lord Orochimaru can handle it, said a masked man wearing dark sunglasses. This was Shibi Aburame. In addition to Minato, Kagami, and Fugaku, their team also included 4 other elite Konoha Jonin and 1 3-tomo Uchiha Genka. The Jonin included Shibi Aburame, Choza Akimichi, Suzaku Nara, and Inoichi Yamanaka. Nara Shikaku, being the Eastern Front's commander, was absent, but this group was nearly a full Ino Shikacho formation. These shinobi had volunteered to join this high-risk mission, united by their trust in Minato. Minato's charisma had already won over much of Konoha's core leadership. This was the same Minato who would later secure overwhelming support in the Hokage election, leaving even Orochimaru in the dust. They're only 30 kilometers away and will arrive soon. What should we do? Fugaku asked, crossing his arms. Should we attempt diplomacy? Suzaku Nara suggested, as he had been handling negotiations during their journey. Minato frowned slightly, his gaze shifting toward Kagami. As their eyes met, A silent understanding passed between them. They smiled faintly. "I'll leave it to you, Kagami," Minato said. "Understood." With a swift step, Kagami dashed forward, his voice calling back, "Genka, follow me." "Yes, sir." Watching the two figures charge ahead, Fugaku turned to Minato, confused. "Did you just give him specific instructions?" Though the team had no designated leader, everyone tacitly agreed that Minato held the highest authority due to his ability to coordinate the group effectively. Minato's warm demeanor disappeared, replaced by an icy determination. At this time and place, a unit like this from Iwagakure can only be a vanguard reconnaissance force probing Konoha's defenses. They must be eliminated. Delaying them, even briefly, might buy us crucial time. Choza hesitated but finally asked, "What if they're simply on another mission?" "Even so," Minato replied coldly, "we cannot let them pass. Our Western Front defenses are stretched thin. We can't allow them to confirm this. At worst, we must ensure the main battle takes place here, not in the Land of Fire." During peacetime missions, Minato was known for his kindness, even letting emotions occasionally influence his decisions. But now it was wartime. Sunigakure had already declared war on Konoha. Both Orochimaru, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and Minato shared the same goal: to conclude the Wind Country campaign as quickly as possible to prepare for the larger conflict ahead. Minato and Jiraiya, having traveled extensively, understood that the Third Shinobi War was inevitable. If it had to happen, then let it devastate other lands, not their own. Minato was kind and approachable toward civilians in Konoha, but outsiders never considered him a good person. Clutching his custom kunai tightly, Minato issued his commands. "Kagami has one of my Flying Thunder God kunai. He'll lead the initial charge while we follow to provide support. Shibi, Suzaku, Choza, Fugaku, you'll each take a direction and form a perimeter. Let no one escape." "Understood." "Understood." As the five dispersed, one question lingered: why was Kagami leading the charge? It wasn't just Fugaku who was puzzled. Even Shibi and the others were curious. Minato didn't explain. They'd understand soon enough. While sprinting, Kagami quickly formed hand seals, his chakra surging. Genka, running alongside him, mirrored his actions. Kagami's training under Kamika during his academy years had forged a strong bond between him and Genka, Kamika's son. Their coordination was flawless. It was during this period that Genka fully pledged his loyalty to Kagami, believing him to be an unparalleled genius destined to lead. The presence of the Iwagakure shinobi grew stronger. Kagami could now faintly sense their location. Closer. Just a little closer. When figures finally appeared on the horizon, Kagami slammed his hands onto the ground. Earth release, swamp of the underworld. From nearly a kilometer away, the swamp technique transformed the terrain into a treacherous mire. With no Sharingan among them, the Iwagakure shinobi were caught completely off guard. The sudden quagmire ensnared most of the group, dragging them down into the earth. Only a few alert individuals managed to leap clear. What kind of jutsu is this? It's the swamp of the underworld. Is it Jiraiya? It certainly couldn't be Hiruzen Sarutobi. While Iwagakure excelled in earth release, their large-scale techniques typically reshaped the landscape rather than altering its properties. This kind of transformation was a hallmark of Konoha's secret techniques. Stay calm. Don't struggle. I'll get you out. Daisher Rockhead, be on guard. One of the Jonin formed hand seals, creating stone platforms over the swamp to rescue his comrades. Earth release, quadruple earth-style wall. Boom. Massive earthen walls rose to stabilize the swamp. Daisher, smash it. On it. A burly Iwagakure shinobi, his arms coated in stone, delivered a shattering punch to one of the walls. Boom. Rubble scattered as dust filled the air. Through the debris, Daisher glimpsed two crimson lights glowing eerily. Unlucky for you. A 1 in 4 chance, and you ran into me. A smirk played across Kagami's lips. Whoosh. Genka leapt into the air, unleashing a torrent of fire. Fire release, great fire destruction. A roaring inferno surged forward, scorching the very air. Earth release, earth-style wall. While earth release wasn't inherently superior to fire, Iwagakure's expertise lay in its versatility. Daisher quickly erected another wall, rebuilding what he had just destroyed. Fire raged against the stone, but it wasn't enough to break through. Then, The heat of the battlefield was abruptly chilled by an ominous presence. Genka felt the freezing aura emanating from his side and couldn't suppress a burning admiration. This is it. Such pure, unfathomable darkness. This is the man I've chosen to follow. Kagami raised his right hand to his left, as if aiming a weapon. This wasn't one of the standard 12 hand seals. Wait. Could this be? You brat, have you even stolen techniques from the 10 shadow methods? In front of Kagami, a massive shadow coalesced, taking the form of jet-black wolves. Each wolf was the size of a calf, and they continued multiplying until there were dozens. Their eyes burned red, each wolf possessing the Sharingan. Gritting his teeth, Kagami clasped his hands tightly, his face alight with bloodthirsty glee. Rip them apart. In release, sun-chasing dire wolves. The pack charged like a howling black tempest, their roars shaking the heavens. The ground trembled, the air reeked of blood. Enveloped in flames, they shattered the stone walls. A shadowy storm engulfed the battlefield. The earth-style wall shattered as searing flames evaporated the swamp, leaving those trapped with no time to escape. Some managed to cast jutsu to shield themselves, but others, caught in panic, were engulfed by the blazing wave and reduced to charred remains. Even those who survived the inferno found no solace. Their defensive earth-style jutsu was torn apart by black, spectral claws. Whoosh! Faced with the oncoming shadowy wolves, the Wagakure shinobi instinctively raised their kunai to block. However, the wolves passed straight through their bodies. Faintly visible within the wolves' spectral forms were glimmers of pale blue light, their souls being ripped apart. Who are you? The Wagakure leader bellowed, his voice tinged with fear and fury. Why are you attacking us? Damn it! I can't hit these things. What kind of monster are they? The lead jonin quickly deduced the key to this bizarre technique, shouting orders to his comrades. Stay calm. These wolves are slow. We can dodge them, just don't engage head-on. But before he could finish his sentence, his voice faltered. Easy for you to say. How about you come save me? Kagami smirked knowingly. He was well aware of his jutsu's weakness. This in-release technique had an effect similar to Kamui, bypassing physical defenses to directly target the soul. While devastating, its primary flaw was the wolves' sluggish speed. Even a chunin could easily evade and outlast the technique if they kept their distance. But Kagami had anticipated this and devised a countermeasure. Control the battlefield. The tactic was simple yet effective: trap and burn. Kagami deliberately left 7 or 8 shinobi alive, each surrounded by a few shadow wolves. Their comrades were forced to either assist or abandon them. In the heat of battle, even the most disciplined shinobi were reluctant to leave their comrades behind. Many had grown up together, trained together, and formed deep bonds over years of missions. The 3 remaining jonin could have fled on their own, but seeing their comrades in peril, they chose to stay. Damn you! What kind of demonic jutsu is this? Shouted Daisher, his anger barely masking his desperation. Kagami stood calmly, allowing 5 shadow wolves to encircle him like an impenetrable barrier. Really? That's the best insult you can come up with? How uncreative, Kagami retorted, his tone dripping with disdain. And speaking of uncreative, our uniforms and eyes are quite distinctive. Are you seriously still asking who we are? Is your brain made of rocks too, Daisher? Daisher froze for a moment before finally noticing the distinctive red Sharingan in Kagami's eyes. No, it's the Sharingan. Don't look into those eyes. His warning came too late. Whoosh! A shadow wolf tore through Daisher's body, extracting a faint blue spirit-like essence from within. No! A female jonin screamed, her voice laced with desperation. Summoning all her chakra, she slammed her palm to the ground. Earth-style, Fisher Strike. The earth roared as a massive crack split the ground, surging toward Kagami and his comrade Genka. But Kagami had already prepared. Biting his finger, he formed a series of hand seals and slammed his hand to the ground. Poof! A giant hawk materialized in a burst of smoke, spreading its wings to lift Kagami and Genka skyward. The hawk ascended swiftly, soaring high into the sky beyond the reach of the jonin's jutsu. From a height of nearly 100 meters, Kagami gazed down, his expression calm yet calculating. Iwagakure shinobi might dominate the earth, but they were helpless against an aerial assault, unless you were the 3rd Tsuchikage, of course. On the hawk's back, Kagami exhaled slowly, feeling a wave of fatigue wash over him. The combination of the swamp jutsu and the shadow wolves had consumed a significant portion of his chakra, nearly equivalent to what an adult Kakashi could muster. The shadow wolves alone demanded immense chakra for both creation and maintenance, their energy drain magnified by the necessity of spiritual power. Yet Kagami pressed on. This was war, and he needed to test his abilities in real combat to prepare for the battles to come. He couldn't afford to falter, not against Hiruzen, the Nine-Tails, Nagato, or the other monstrous forces he knew awaited him in the future. This war was his crucible, his chance to evolve and perfect his powers. Only in his most refined state could he awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan and subdue Sukuna. Whoosh. 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 The rest of Minato's team emerged from the surrounding terrain, their eyes widening at the scene before them. What kind of jutsu is this? Shibi muttered, his usually stoic demeanor faltering. It looks like our clan's shadow techniques, but far more potent, Suzaku added, his tone tinged with awe. That was a Wagakure's Daisho. I've seen him before, but to think Kagami could take him down like this. Fugaku, standing among the group, recalled his previous encounter with Kagami. His heart sank. This boy's most formidable skill wasn't even these shadow wolves. It was his terrifying swordsmanship. Fugaku had always considered himself a genius, one of the finest shinobi of his generation. But watching Kagami now, he felt a gnawing sense of inadequacy. If Kagami awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, what right would he, Fugaku, have to call himself the clan leader? Who are you people? Why is Konoha attacking us? Shouted the remaining Iwagakure leader, his voice trembling with anger. This is the land of Earth's border. Are you declaring war? Kagami's gaze was as cold as his voice. Some things are better left unsaid. But don't pretend to be ignorant. The old man Inoki sent you to scout Fire Country's defenses, didn't he? You dare speak of Lord Tsuchikage that way? The Jonin's face twisted in fury. You scum of the Uchiha clan. Your sneak attack will not go unanswered. Lord Tsuchikage will bring his wrath upon you all. Kagami chuckled darkly. Didn't your precious Tsuchikage ever tell you? Both he and his master were beaten down by my clan. If Madara hadn't shown mercy, that old fossil would have been long dead. Madara, merciful? The Konoha shinobi, familiar with Madara's infamous reputation, found this statement difficult to process. Enough. I'll kill you myself, the Wagakure leader roared, leaping high into the air, his rage blinding him to all else. Like Icarus chasing the sun, he reached for an impossible goal. Kagami smirked, his Sharingan spinning as he maneuvered the hawk to dive in a calculated arc, evading the attack with ease. As the Iwagakure leader descended, Kagami's eyes locked onto a disturbance in the earth below, an underground escape route. So, trying to flee? Kagami whispered, his tone laced with amusement. Minato, watching from a distance, smiled faintly. He had noticed the same escape attempt but chose not to interfere, curious to see how Kagami would handle it. Kagami leapt from the hawk, predicting the escape route with precision. He exhaled sharply, clenching his fist as chakra surged through his body. In that moment, everything became silent. His mind focused entirely on a single point. He found it, the infinitesimal window where physical force and chakra could converge to distort space itself. His Sharingan spun furiously, blood threatening to seep from his eyes. Crack, a deafening sound tore through the battlefield. Kagami's punch extended impossibly, his torso twisting at an inhuman angle. The air trembled. Space warped. Before the stunned eyes of his allies, a black-red flash erupted from Kagami's fist. Black flash. Cursed energy originates from the practitioner's negative emotions such as fear, anger, and sorrow, and is a form of spiritual energy that can be manipulated in specific ways. Chakra, on the other hand, derives from the divine tree, though not all chakra belongs to it. The divine tree is merely the seed. Chakra is a result of perfectly harmonized energies within the body, akin to chi. This energy enables almost anything, manifesting creation from nothingness and granting life itself, as evidenced by entities like the tailed beasts. The black flash is a phenomenon of unparalleled impact, akin to a critical hit. It is not merely luck but a testament to one's profound understanding of their own energy. In the shinobi world, there exists a similar method to enhance chakra potency, Sage Mode. Sage Mode not only heightens sensory awareness and amplifies long-range combat capabilities, but also integrates the surrounding natural energy into the practitioner's body for attacks. Techniques like Naruto's Raisin Shuriken were impossible before mastering Sage Mode. However, compared to Sage Mode's all-encompassing enhancements, Kagami's mastery of Black Flash was highly specialized. Both techniques share one commonality: they harness the energy present in nature. Kagami concentrated all of it into a single devastating attack. As his fist fell, the black-red lightning tore through space itself. This was destruction at the spatial level. Boom! Under the scorching sun, the eruption of black-red lightning dyed even the daylight with a sinister hue. The power ripped through all obstructions, reducing them to nothing but debris. Boom! The deafening shockwave forced everyone nearby to cover their ears in pain. Even the residual blast carried the force of a large-scale wind-style jutsu. When the smoke cleared, what remained was nothing short of apocalyptic. A massive, bottomless crater, over 10 meters in diameter, scarred the earth. It was hard to believe this devastation came from a human fist. The edges of the crater still crackled with faint black-red lightning. As for the Iwagakure Jonin who had been Kagami's target, there was no trace of him. Not even ashes remained. Silence. Utter silence. For some, the scene before them was not unfamiliar. They had witnessed something similar before, a tailed beast bomb. While the Black Flash's range was smaller, its deadly aura was on par with that catastrophic force. Cursed energy alone could never achieve such power. Sukuna's deep voice resonated within Kagami's mind, its tone unreadable. I must admit, chakra is a higher form of energy than cursed energy. Kagami Uchiha, you possess a rare talent, the insatiable hunger for power, willing to risk everything to attain it. In my 1,000 years of existence, I've seldom encountered one like you. If you abandon your pointless devotion to your clan, you will reach unimaginable heights. True freedom, like mine. For the first time, Sukuna addressed Kagami by name. Kagami glanced at his own arm, scorched and cracked. His body reeked of burnt flesh, and his left side had gone completely numb. His body wasn't strong enough to sustain such a technique. What is true freedom? Kagami muttered, posing the question to Sukuna before answering himself. Someone like you, claiming to embody freedom, yet obsessed with demanding respect and indulging in meaningless slaughter in pursuit of joy. I'm not here to preach righteousness to you, Sukuna. It's just, your endless, pointless carnage bores me. True freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's having the ability to choose not to do something. My clan isn't my weakness. It's my motivation to grow stronger. Uchiha is destined to be the strongest. And you, Sukuna, you bound in chains. What right do you have to lecture me on freedom? Kagami's voice grew colder. A being that can't even dance anymore. How pitiful. With that, Kagami sealed Sukuna back into his mental cage before the ancient entity could retort. Whoosh. As Kagami plummeted, weakened, from the sky, he expected the giant hawk to catch him. Instead, someone else reached him first. You're reckless, Kagami, Minato sighed as he caught him mid-air, landing safely on the ground. Looking down at Kagami, he shook his head in a mix of disappointment and concern. You didn't need to use that technique. You could have won without it. My goal wasn't just to defeat her, Kagami replied, his voice steady despite his injuries. This was worth it. He had succeeded in performing Black Flash, a technique akin to a formula. Once achieved for the first time, mastering it was inevitable. Minato sighed again, his expression softening into a small smile. All right, but let's get you treated first. Shibi and the others can handle the rest. Kagami nodded but suddenly added, put me down. I can walk on my own. As practical as Minato's gesture was, Kagami found the physical closeness uncomfortable. With Minato's Flying Thunder God technique, Kagami had no fear of being left vulnerable on the battlefield. This was the perfect opportunity to utilize Minato's abilities and gain more experience himself. Minutes later, Fugaku and the others regrouped after finishing off the remaining Iwagakure shinobi. That's one hell of a technique. Akimichi Choza murmured in awe. I've seen many Uchiha before, but Kagami. He's something else entirely, Shibi added, his tone heavy with admiration. He's a monster, Fugaku muttered, more to himself than anyone else. As the leader of the Uchiha clan, Fugaku had always prided himself on his strength. Yet, Watching Kagami perform a feat on par with a tailed beast bomb, he couldn't help but feel overshadowed. "Do you have a name for that technique?" Minato asked as they prepared to leave. "Black Flash," Kagami replied simply. "That's it." Minato quipped, a grin tugging at his lips. "I thought you'd come up with something grander." "Minato-sensei," Kagami deadpanned, "you don't have to act quirky just to maintain your image." Minato chuckled, brushing off the remark. "All right, let's get you patched up. Akimichi-san, bring the bodies for interrogation." Minato's Flying Thunder God technique activated. A golden flash illuminated the battlefield. The war in the Wind Country had not gone as expected. Although Konoha shinobi were stronger than Sunagekyers, the desert environment favored Suna's ninja. One young shinobi in particular, Raza, wielded his magnet release to dominate small Konoha squads, even when outnumbered. Raza possessed the unique ability to control Shikaku's rampages in the desert, making him a strategic-level asset. Orochimaru had underestimated his potential, causing the battle to fall into a stalemate. The desert battlefield was littered with bloodstains, shattered puppets, and broken weapons. "Orochimaru, someone like you is far from enough to kill me," Chiyo sneered coldly. Manipulating her 10 puppets of Chikamatsu, she effortlessly severed a massive brown snake in two. The severed snake's remains revealed Orochimaru, his face darkened with frustration. According to his original strategy, he would hold off Chiyo while Konoha's forces swiftly pushed into the Wind Country, forcing Sunagekure into chaos. But his gaze turned toward Raza, whose golden sand tsunami dominated the battlefield. This kind of strategic magnet release was devastating in large-scale combat, especially in his home terrain. "Another magnet release user," Orochimaru muttered coldly. Chiyo scoffed. "Little snake, since you dared to invade the Wind Country, I assume you've learned the truth. Or perhaps, it was your Konoha that killed the third Kazekage." The third Kazekage had been missing for over 3 months. Even for a Kage, a month without contact would usually result in them being presumed dead. Chiyo had long since abandoned the search for the third Kazekage. Instead, she focused on using the war to select Sunagekyer's fourth Kazekage. Orochimaru licked his lips, his serpentine tongue flickering as he sneered. "Old woman, according to our intel, it was your grandson who killed the third Kazekage." "Sasori." Chiyo's pupils contracted sharply, her chakra threads faltering for a brief moment. For a puppeteer of her caliber, such a mistake was unthinkable. Whoosh. Orochimaru didn't waste the opportunity, shooting a white blade from his mouth to sever Chiyo's arm. Boom. Several puppets fell to the ground, rendered useless without her control. "Chiyo-sama. Protect Chiyo-sama. Retreat. Protect her at all costs." Upon seeing Chiyo injured, countless Sunagekure shinobi threw themselves at Orochimaru with reckless abandon. For the elderly Chiyo to even be present on the battlefield was a testament to Suna's desperation. If she died here, the village's morale would collapse entirely. The relentless Sunagekure forces forced Orochimaru to retreat, even drawing Raza away from his battlefield to reinforce Chiyo. Exhausted from his prolonged fight with Chiyo, Orochimaru knew staying any longer was dangerous. Ultimately, the battle ended with Sunagekure retreating, though Konoha's forces lacked the strength to pursue. Many Konoha shinobi were suffering from Suna's poisons, and Orochimaru scowled. Tsunade. Without Tsunade's expertise, many of his strategies were constrained. With her here, Chiyo's poisons wouldn't have been such an issue. But on this blood-soaked battlefield, Tsunade's phobia of blood would have likely hindered more than helped. Orochimaru scanned the carnage and felt a rare sense of frustration. He had underestimated Sunagekure. Even a sinking ship retained sharp nails, let alone one of the 5 great villages. Raza's presence had significantly impeded Konoha's progress. Orochimaru had not achieved the decisive victory he wanted. He understood the implications of this setback for Konoha. A swift victory in the Wind Country was crucial to prepare for other threats. Determined, Orochimaru decided to infiltrate Sunagekure personally, gathering more intelligence on Chiyo and Raza while spreading rumors that Sasori had assassinated the third Kazekage. If the opportunity arose, he would not hesitate to eliminate Raza. Meanwhile, at Konoha's western front, Kanabi Bridge. The bridge was strewn with severed limbs and shattered kunai. Fugaku used his advanced genjutsu to interrogate 2 surviving Iwagakure shinobi for information. Nearby, Kagami methodically cleaned the blood from Sodi no Shirayuki, his short sword. The swordsmanship of the Uchiha flowed seamlessly with their Sharingan, capitalizing on its unparalleled precision. By exploiting even the smallest flaws in his opponent's movements, Kagami had repeatedly demonstrated why short blades were more lethal than long swords in close combat. It also synergized perfectly with his cutting techniques. Minato had noticed Kagami's desire to refine his skills and had allowed him to handle most of the subsequent IWA encounters. The Uchiha were known to thrive in real combat, where their instincts and battle acumen grew sharper. Kagami's ability to read the flow of battle and his timing had noticeably improved in just a few days. It seems Iwagakure has confirmed the intelligence regarding our weakened border defenses, Fugaku reported grimly. According to their information, Anoki has already dispatched the Jinchuriki. Their target is Kanabi Bridge. Jinchuriki. The mere mention of the word carried a weight that stifled the atmosphere. Minato smiled gently. This was inevitable. Holding this position was always about delaying them. All eyes turned to Kagami. Fugaku had already learned of Orochimaru's strategy from the pre-battle briefing. Minato would hold off one Jinchuriki, while Kagami would be responsible for the second if both arrived. Despite Kagami's remarkable performance thus far, no one believed he could contend with a Jinchuriki. The destructive black flash he unleashed earlier was undoubtedly powerful, but it had left him incapacitated afterward. Meeting their silent gazes, Kagami sheathed his blade. Hopefully, it's the four tails. I'm rather interested in it. Of all the tailed beasts, Kagami felt the four tails was most compatible with him. With his affinity for fire and earth style, he already possessed the foundational elements for lava release. Though his current focus was on refining his Yin release techniques, lava release was an extremely versatile and powerful ability. The four tails would serve as a shortcut. As Kagami thought about the possibilities, a searing heatwave washed over the area. It was as if a volcano had erupted nearby. "You bastards from Konoha!" A thunderous roar echoed as a crimson figure approached, flames erupting with every step. "What have you done to my comrades?" "Prepare yourselves," Minato said calmly. "It's the four tails, Kagami, just as you wanted." Unlike his earlier encounters, Minato showed no panic. He had faced the four tails and five tails together before. Compared to the nine tails, these two paled in comparison. Kagami activated his Sharingan, gathering his chakra and weaving hand signs. He wasn't one to wait for opponents to arrive for idle conversation. Time spent talking was time wasted. ZZT ZZT ZZT, a piercing sound of cutting filled the air, drawing everyone's attention. Fugaku, in particular, stiffened as unpleasant memories resurfaced. Blades of pure blue energy whirled around Kagami, spinning faster and faster until they formed a tempest. "Move away from me," Kagami said coolly. The storm of blades grew larger, shredding the earth and even the corpses of the Iwagakure shinobi, staining the azure glow with streaks of blood. The four tails Jinchuriki, cloaked in molten lava, wasted no time. Lava release, flowing lava stream. Massive spheres of molten rock, each the size of a millstone, hurtled toward Kagami, radiating intense heat. Kagami extended two fingers, his Sharingan gleaming. Cutting release, thousand blade flow, scenic severance. The battlefield descended into chaos. An unending torrent of sword energy surged like a roaring dragon, grinding the lava orbs into nothing. The flood carved a deep trench into the earth as it advanced, trapping the crimson figure at its core. Within a radius of hundreds of meters, the ground was pulverized into dust, and towering trees disintegrated into ash. What is this? Even experienced shinobi like Aburame Shibi couldn't contain their shock. Wind release? No, it doesn't have the feel of wind chakra. This technique, it must be a forbidden jutsu. How many trump cards does he have? He's a monster. Fugaku stared intently, straining to discern the mechanics of the technique. Cutting release. It's one of Kagami's unique secret arts, but it doesn't seem like a Kekii Genkai. Minato's voice carried through the tumultuous winds, his words audible to the keen-eared Jonin. This is a pure mental energy-based high-frequency cutting attack. As far as mental energy goes, there may only be one creature that can rival Kagami. The creature he referred to wasn't human. Pure mental slashes. Nara Suzaku exclaimed. A user of Yin release himself, he found the concept almost incomprehensible. Is it some variant of spirit transformation? Should we guard his physical body? Although, I doubt he'd need it. Minato pressed his fingers to the ground, his senses sharpening. Another presence. It's the Five Tails, approaching with a squad of Awagakure shinobi. Shibi, Genka, stay here and assist Kagami. The rest of you, follow me to intercept them. Understood. Within the Sword Tempest, Rashi found himself in dire straits. His current form was far removed from a human appearance, his skin molten rock, a fiery tail swaying behind him, resembling a demonic figure of lava. This was the Lava Release Chakra mode, a state achieved through years of training with Son Goku's power. Rashi's mastery over Lava Release, the Four-Tail signature Kekii Genkai, made him more formidable than Han, the Five Tails Jinchuriki. Among the Konoha shinobi Kagami had killed earlier, one of them had been Rashi's nephew, a posthumous child of Rashi's brother, dearer to him than his own son. When the team failed to report back, Rashi, consumed by rage, disregarded his comrades' warnings and charged straight into battle. He had expected his new form to incinerate any Konoha scum daring to trespass on Awagakure's borders. Instead, he found himself ensnared in a storm of razor-sharp blades. The storm's countless edges failed to deal a killing blow but inflicted relentless, harrowing damage. Guttural bubbling noises escaped Rashi's throat as more of Son Goku's chakra seeped into him, responding to his rage. Roar! His deafening bellow shook the heavens as blazing, violent chakra erupted from his body, forcibly tearing a hole in the blade's storm. Already entering tailed beast mode? Kagami observed, his Sharingan capturing every detail of Rashi's transformation. The three tails swaying behind Rashi exuded raw power. Kagami dismissed his thousand-blade flow, summoning his massive eagle. Uchiha clansmen often favored summoning contracts with ninja cats or crows due to their synergy with genjutsu. However, Kagami had subdued this eagle himself, specifically to enhance his combat versatility. Flight offered a tremendous advantage, particularly against ground-bound opponents. Yet Kagami's current companions, Genka and Shibi, couldn't exploit this. Jonin though they were, they lacked means to counter a tailed beast. Aburame Shibi, whose parasitic insects specialized in consuming chakra, quickly caught on to Kagami's irritation. Don't worry. I've already planted my insects underground. The moment Rashi exits tailed beast form, I'll drain his chakra. Have you ever used them to drain tailed beast chakra? No. I'll attempt to destabilize his chakra. If you succeed, assist me. If not, prioritize survival. Don't drag me down. I'm still a Jonin. Shibi thought, feeling both humiliated and motivated by Kagami's bluntness. In the moments they conversed, Rashi stabilized his tailed beast chakra, his now pitch-black eyes locking onto Kagami's eagle. Malicious chakra condensed before Rashi, its particles visible to the naked eye as they coalesced into a dense, black sphere. Tailed beast bomb. The oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily. For Genka, witnessing a tailed beast bomb for the first time, his hands trembled uncontrollably. This was a catastrophe, beyond human power to resist. What are you afraid of? Kagami's calm voice cut through the tension, snapping Genka back to reality. He turned to see Kagami's cold, confident expression. A mere beast. We Uchiha tame these things. How could you fear livestock? Kagami's absolute confidence was contagious, even warming Shibi's blood. Pour all your chakra into a great fire annihilation. Leave the rest to me. Understood. Genka formed rapid seals, expelling a ferocious wave of fire from his mouth. The flames surged forward like a tidal wave, their searing heat threatening to engulf everything. To Rashi, however, it was a mere nuisance, a warm breeze against his molten skin. With a gulp, he swallowed the black energy sphere, preparing to release a catastrophic tailed beast bomb. But Kagami's flames were far from ordinary. Using Een Release, he manipulated the fire into a colossal dragon. The essence of Een Release lies in creating form from nothing. While he couldn't create entities outright, Kagami could imbue existing elements with lifelike qualities. The Crimson Dragon, tinged with purple and blue, coiled tightly around Rashi. Composite Ninjutsu, Een Dragon Inferno Prison. Boom! The explosion illuminated the battlefield, a blazing sun seemingly rising from the earth. Kagami, astride his eagle, ascended higher, his gaze fixed on Rashi's condition through the blinding light. As the flames dissipated, they revealed a massive crater, reshaping the landscape. At its center, Rashi's partially transformed form remained unscathed. Another tailed beast bomb began to condense in front of him. Tailed beasts. Such peculiar creatures. Little brat, you're in trouble now. Sukuna's mocking voice echoed in Kagami's mind. Since their last exchange, Sukuna's disdain for Kagami had only grown. Trouble. Kagami's lips curled into a smirk. When facing other shinobi of his level, Kagami might still fall short. But against a tailed beast? For the Uchiha, they were nothing more than oversized pets. This was no battle. It was a game of rock, paper, scissors. Kagami's eagle dissolved into smoke, and his figure faded into thin air, like a wisp of smoke. A faint sound, like the chirping of cicadas, filled the air. Below, Rashi froze mid-action, his tailed beast bomb unraveling into harmless chakra particles. Cutting release, single blade, Higarashi's lament. In Rashi's mental plane, Kagami appeared before Son Goku, the towering crimson-furred ape bound in chains. Roar! The four tails bellowed in fury, hurricane-force winds whipping through the space. Kagami's black hair billowed, his crimson Sharingan locking onto the beast. For a creature named Son Goku, you're remarkably unimpressive. Boom! The mental space split into two distinct colors. Black and purple energy surged like a tidal wave, threatening to drown the searing red volcano. Who are you? How do you have such terrifying chakra? And how do you know my name? Son Goku felt an unparalleled chill radiating from the chakra before him. This sensation. It reminded him of the young Indra, the ancestor of the Uchiha clan. The in-release purity in this boy's chakra was dangerously close to Indra's back then. But Indra was a direct descendant of Hagoromo, the sage of six paths. How could this boy? Uchiha Kagami stepped onto Son Goku's massive head. His mental energy materialized into a gigantic Fuma Shuriken. Humans often viewed tailed beasts as natural disasters, forces to be feared, sealed, and avoided. Kagami knew the truth, yet he wouldn't approach them like Naruto would, striving for reconciliation. Because he understood one thing clearly, he was precisely the kind of person tailed beasts hated most. He didn't see them as companions. He sought only to exploit their power. The spinning Fuma Shuriken, with its intense cutting energy, slashed mercilessly towards Son Goku's neck. You brat. Don't underestimate me. Lava release, Flower Fruit Mountain. Son Goku struggled violently against the chains, releasing extreme heat that created a sea of molten lava. Boom! The explosion of lava resisted the Fuma Shuriken's force. But the stalemate didn't last long. Kagami's cold Sharingan poured relentless power into the shuriken, expanding it to a massive size of hundreds of meters. Crash! Son Goku's body collapsed, the Fuma Shuriken pressing down bit by bit like a blade cutting through stone. A natural enemy, is it? Through the seal's slight openness, Sukuna watched Kagami's actions from the mental plane. The Sharingan's base abilities reminded Sukuna of the six eyes, providing him with a reference. However, Sukuna thought even Satoru Gojo with his six eyes would struggle against this monster. The beast before him carried a sheer density of energy leagues beyond that of Jogo. Unlike the unique six eyes, though, this clan produced many users of such eyes. Could this clan be the legendary divine lineage? Sukuna mused. Do they possess innate suppression over demonic and feral beings? Was Sukuna himself sealed within Kagami because one of this clan's ancestors had bound him here? He pondered these questions, searching for ways to escape while observing Kagami's abilities. There was one point Sukuna misunderstood. Under normal circumstances, a Sharingan at the 3 Tomo level couldn't control tailed beasts. Even Mangekyo Sharingan wouldn't necessarily work on stronger tailed beasts like Kurama. Obito's brief control over Kurama was likely due to Uchiha Madara's residual influence. The key wasn't merely the Sharingan's ability. It was the wielder's strength. Kagami's domination over the tailed beast had been evident earlier with Kurama. The answer was simple: ocular power. Ocular power was a form of chakra, heavily emphasizing spiritual energy. The Mangekyo Sharingan was born from spiritual energy, reaching a critical threshold and evolving. Kagami's current ocular power already exceeded that threshold, capable of evolving into Mangekyo Sharingan at any time. But he hadn't yet resolved its inherent flaw. Excessive use would lead to blindness. Why couldn't Mangekyo's ocular power recover? Because the Uchiha's physical bodies were too weak to bear the strain of Mangekyo eyes. Indra, the sage's son, had no such concerns. But his descendants lacked the physical resilience to sustain those legendary eyes. Even Madara, in his old age, could no longer handle the Rinnegan. To avoid exhausting his Rinnegan or his body, Madara had entrusted his eyes to Nagato, a descendant of the Uzumaki clan. Kagami estimated it would take him another year before his body could fully withstand the Mangekyo's strain. His ideal scenario involved capturing White Zetsu and seizing Uchiha Madara's research to graft Hashirama cells onto himself. This wouldn't grant him the Rinnegan, that was exclusive to the sage's descendants, but it would greatly alleviate Mangekyo's side effects. Otherwise, even with Obito's efficient use of Kamui, his eyes would have long succumbed to blindness. Kagami also had a backup plan. He speculated that reverse curse technique, which involved converting negative energy into positive energy, could potentially resolve Mangekyo's flaws. Translating this into chakra terms meant converting Yin attribute chakra into Yang attribute chakra. Theoretically possible, but far more complex than ordinary reverse techniques. In the mental space, Son Goku roared in pain and cursed incessantly as the Fuma Shuriken cut deeper. It was pointless. If he weren't sealed, he might have stood a chance against Kagami. Now though, it was a one-sided battle. Kagami continuously harvested Son Goku's chakra, feeling the fiery currents flow into himself. A tailed beast was a living mass of chakra. As Kagami drained its reserves, Son Goku visibly withered. The tailed beast chakra was leagues above ordinary chakra in both quantity and quality. In mere moments, Kagami had gained new insights into developing lava release. Suddenly, a deafening shout echoed across the mental space. Release. Kagami felt immense pressure trying to force him out of the mental space. He glanced once more at the now emaciated Son Goku and said coldly, "A red-haired ape pretending to be the Monkey King. How pathetic. Goodbye, Four Tails. Pretending. The sage himself gave me this name. Why are you so hostile toward me?" Son Goku's complaints were lost as Kagami's presence faded from his mental space. Back in the real world, a plume of smoke signaled Kagami's reappearance atop the giant eagle. He gazed down at Rashi, now reverted from his tailed beast state. It seemed the Four Tails wouldn't recover its chakra for a while. You just... Aburame Shibi hesitated, recalling the scene. That was the spirit transformation technique. Don't make it sound like plagiarism, Shibi-senpai, Kagami replied flatly. You had plenty of time to use your parasitic insects against him. Don't tell me you didn't. Well, it all happened so suddenly. You were only gone for a few seconds. No excuses. Clang. Kagami unsheathed his blade and leaped from the eagle, charging straight at Rashi. I'll handle the Jinchuriki. You just sit back and watch. As a helpless spectator. Do not look into the Sharingan. Having experienced its power firsthand, Rashi dared not meet Kagami's gaze. Despite his seething rage and humiliation, he could only avert his eyes, bracing for the inevitable. Like a lamb to the slaughter. Fire-style dragon flame jutsu. Lava-style, flowing river of molten rock. Boom! The fiery dragon clashed with molten spheres, releasing a searing heat wave. You brat, your flames are nothing but ordinary fire. My lava release burns even fire to ashes. Even without the Four Tails chakra, Rashi remained a formidable ninja. Swish. Danger. Rashi's gaze stayed fixed on the explosion, unaware of an invisible hurtling from behind him. Sensing imminent danger, he narrowly avoided the lethal strike. Screech. Crash. Dozens of towering trees fell in a chain reaction. Turning around, Rashi met a pair of crimson Sharingan and the glint of a flashing blade. Without the Four Tails chakra, Rashi couldn't sustain his lava release chakra mode. If he could, this audacious Uchiha wouldn't dare come so close. Clang! The blade of Kagami's Shirayuki collided with Rashi's steel gauntlet, sparks flying in all directions. Boom! Rashi twisted his body, throwing a molten-hot punch at Kagami's chest. Kagami, calm and focused, sidestepped the strike with ease and retaliated with a lightning-fast kick. Rashi crossed his arms to block, his feet skidding back under the immense impact. But he quickly stabilized and lunged again. You're too green, kid. His fists swung like meteors, generating intense waves of heat. Kagami dodged nimbly, weaving through the barrage of punches like a phantom, searching for an opening. Attack long enough, and mistakes will follow. Finally, Kagami saw his chance. Using the reflection of Shirayuki's blade, he locked eyes with Rashi. Megan, Kyoka Suijetsu. Illusion art, mirror flower watermoon. Vast ocular power surged into Rashi's mind, instantly painting Black Tomo into his vision. Without hesitation, Kagami slashed at Rashi's neck. Wham! Rashi kicked Kagami away, sending him tumbling through the air. Though the kick lacked lava release enhancement, it disrupted Kagami's rhythm. Looking at Kagami, who rose unscathed, Rashi's face darkened. "You and that monkey came to an agreement, didn't you?" Kagami asked mockingly. Rashi's eyes flickered with conflicted emotions. "Only to fight you. For some reason, the Four Tails agreed to help break your genjutsu. What did you do to him?" Rashi couldn't comprehend it. The Four Tails, who barely acknowledged him on a good day, willingly aided him now. If killing this Uchiha could permanently win the Four Tails' loyalty, Rashi might even consider it. Gurgle, gurgle. The sound and sensation were all too familiar to Rashi. His pupils contracted in shock. Kagami looked down. His body was now shrouded in a crimson chakra cloak, a single enormous tail extending behind him. This is impossible." Rashi exclaimed in terror. "You're the Nine Tails Jinchuriki?" The idea alone was unthinkable. Everyone knew the Hidden Leaf had only one tailed beast, the Nine Tails. And while many were unaware of the poor relations between the Hidden Leaf's leadership and the Uchiha, they all knew the history of Hashirama and Madara. Had the third Hokage gone insane to make an Uchiha the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails? Did they want another Madara Uchiha to emerge? In Iwagakure, both the second and third Tsuchikage had been humiliated by Madara's overwhelming power. The name Uchiha Madara struck fear and resentment deep into their hearts. Even Kagami's companions, Shibi and Genka, were stunned. The fact that Uzumaki Kushina was the Nine Tails Jinchuriki was a classified secret. Yet now, seeing Kagami enveloped in a chakra cloak, he's doomed to lose himself to the Nine Tails' hatred. Shibi thought grimly. Not only does he have unparalleled Uchiha talent, but now he's wielding the Nine Tails' power. The Uchiha clan is unstoppable. Genka marveled, caught up in a vision of his clan dominating the leaf. "Idiot! That's my chakra. Can't you tell the difference?" The Four Tails roared inside Rashi, its booming voice echoing through his mind. How could I know that? All tailed beast cloaks look the same." Rashi muttered to himself. Before he could respond fully, Kagami struck again, his enhanced speed leaving only afterimages in his wake. Bang! A single punch landed squarely on Rashi's chest, searing his skin and leaving an ashen fist imprint. Kagami's chakra tail lashed out, grabbing Rashi by the ankle and slamming him into the ground. There was no respite, no dialogue, just relentless, calculated brutality. Without the Four Tails' protection, Rashi's body was nearing its limits. "Hey, you idiot! Get up and kill him!" The Four Tails bellowed in frustration, but Rashi's body refused to respond. "Do we need to help him?" Shibi swallowed nervously. Despite his hesitation, he couldn't shake the sight before him, an 8-year-old child dominating a seasoned Jinchuriki. Even Genka, usually full of bravado, was speechless. Suddenly, Shibi noticed a small black on the horizon. At first, he dismissed it. But moments later, the black dot grew larger, taking on the unmistakable shape of a person. "No way!" Shibi's voice trembled, more fearful than when faced with the Jinchuriki. Leaning out from the giant eagle, he shouted desperately, "Kagami! Retreat! It's Inoki! The third Tsuchikage is here!" Inoki, nearing 60, was one of the few surviving warriors of the Warring States period. He was the longest reigning Kage in history, the mastermind behind Iwagakure's golden era. With his mastery of dust release, Inoki had earned the title Inoki of both scales, a testament to his absolute strength. What was the third Tsuchikage doing here? Minato was equally alarmed. Using his flying Raijin kunai linked to Kagami, he sensed the massive chakra and quickly abandoned his own battle to regroup. When he arrived, the sight of Kagami cloaked in tailed beast chakra left him stunned. "There's no time to explain," Kagami said, holding Rashi's unconscious body by the collar. Though tempted to finish him off, Kagami decided against it. A living Jinchuriki held far more strategic value. Far above, a diminutive figure floated mid-air, arms crossed. Despite his small stature, the sheer pressure radiating from Inoki left everyone below struggling to breathe. Even the eagle shuddered, instinctively drawing closer to Kagami for safety. Kagami dismissed the summoning, sending the bird away, and turned his gaze toward the Tsuchikage. A man of this level shouldn't have left Uwagakure unguarded. The only explanation. Danzo, Kagami murmured to himself, his eyes narrowing. A sudden, inexplicable development could only be attributed to someone manipulating events behind the scenes. And when it came to sabotage, 9 out of 10 times, the culprit was Danzo. Inoki's sharp gaze locked onto Kagami. That boy. That Uchiha boy. He's using a tailed beast's chakra. The old Tsuchikage's bushy white eyebrows twitched in alarm. Had Hiruzen Sarutobi truly lost his mind? Letting an Uchiha become a Jinchuriki? What was the leaf thinking? Uchiha brat, put Rashi down, and I'll allow you to retreat, Inoki's voice carried from above as he hovered lower. Uchiha Kagami smirked, tightening his grip on Rashi. Inoki, your dust release is renowned across the ninja world. If I release the Four Tails Jinchuriki, I know you'll immediately unleash it on me. Don't talk to me about honor among the Kage. I don't trust that nonsense. Inoki's brow furrowed. Brat, didn't Hiruzen Sarutobi teach you manners? Even a Wagakure ninja show respect by addressing the Hokage properly. Kagami remained indifferent. A name exists to be called, and titles mean nothing to me. And if begging on my knees would guarantee our escape with the Four Tails, I'd kneel right now. Inoki chuckled coldly. It was your first Hokage who knelt to us to sell the tailed beasts back in the day. This remark soured the expressions of the leaf shinobi. Kagami's grin widened. Really? Then tell me, how long did you and the second Tsuchikage kneel after being crushed by Uchiha Madara? Inoki's narrowed eyes radiated danger, the air growing heavy with tension. Losing to Madara Uchiha isn't shameful. The reasons no longer matter. But you, brat. Inoki extended his hands, a pure white cube forming in his palms. Rashi and a Nine-Tails Jinchuriki brat as your comrade in arms? I suppose Uwagakure wouldn't lose too much. Inoki, let's get one thing straight. Despite the mounting tension, only Kagami showed no respect toward the Tsuchikage. It was a fundamental principle of negotiation. Equality must exist between both parties. If you dare unleash Dust Release, I'll have Minato teleport both me and the Four Tails straight back to Konoha. And trust me, the Four Tails isn't worth your life. Minato glanced at Kagami, understanding the bluff. Though he was prepared to extract as many allies as possible, Kagami's confidence carried a boldness even he couldn't replicate. Inoki maintained his Dust Release stance but didn't fire. Dust Release was indeed one of the most powerful offensive techniques in the ninja world, but hitting a flying Raijin user was a completely different challenge. Inoki knew this well, having faced Tobarama Senju numerous times. Fine, brat. State your terms. At that moment Han, the Five-Tails Jinchuriki, arrived with his team. They stood ready, awaiting Inoki's orders. Swear in front of all these Iwagakure ninja that you won't invade the Land of Fire's borders for 6 months. If you do, I'll return the Four Tails to you. It's a fair trade, isn't it? Inoki's expression darkened into a grim smile. Wrong. Rashi is the hostage, but the trade should be your lives for his return. Do you think I won't use Dust Release? How many can that flying Raijin save? I'm not mistaken. Kagami's tone was unhurried. We haven't crossed the border. We're merely defending the Land of Fire. Don't use grandiose words to cover up your intentions, Inoki. You're here to probe Konoha's defenses, looking for an opening to invade. Therefore, Kagami clenched his fist, his voice echoing with determination. My comrades may die, but their deaths won't be due to my decisions. They will die protecting the Land of Fire, protecting Konoha. They will die at the hands of invaders like you. Kagami's words ignited the spirits of the Leaf Shinobi. Even Fugaka's blood burned with a newfound fervor. That's right. You invaders will never set foot in the Land of Fire. Exactly. Death doesn't matter. Not even the Tsuchikage scares us. Even if we die, Kagami-sama will avenge us. Genka roared, Inoki, you'll face the wrath of the Uchiha. Inoki suppressed his anger. Arrogant brat. Dust release, detachment of the primitive world technique. A massive white beam shot down with overwhelming destructive power. Inoki had no intention of holding back. He wouldn't be fooled by Kagami and Minato's theatrics. Did they think a single boy, even with flying Raijin, could teleport the four tails and themselves to safety? All of them would perish. Under dust release, all are equal. Even Madara Uchiha couldn't withstand its might. As the terrifying pressure of dust release bore down, the shinobi below felt an oppressive despair. Minato prepared to activate flying Raijin, intending to save as many as possible, but Kagami pushed him aside. He tossed Rashi to the ground and smiled. In this moment of near-total suffocation, his expression seemed almost eerie. A crimson surge of chakra erupted, scorching his skin. From the tailed beast chakra cloak, Kagami transitioned into partial-tailed beast form, his human features barely discernible. For massive tails lashed violently behind him, the shockwave forcing the others back. It hurts. The tailed beast chakra burns, just as I expected. The air itself seemed ready to combust under the intense heat. But the intoxicating power coursing through Kagami's veins drowned out the pain. All desires in this world ultimately stem from a yearning for power. With power, anything can be achieved. Clenching his fist, Kagami felt black and red lightning dance around him, reducing the flying debris to dust. Those who've experienced Black Flash stand in a realm apart from those who haven't, Sukuna observed within the seal, his sinister smile widening. Your Black Flash is entirely different from the one I know. But can your fragile body withstand such violent energy? Don't worry. If you die, I'll avenge you. I'll slaughter every last shinobi in this world. Ha 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 ha. Outside, Kagami wasn't fazed by Sukuna's taunts. He focused entirely. Perfect concentration. Surpassing limits. Black Flash. A black and red thunder dragon roared upward, clashing directly with the unstoppable beam of dust release. The deafening explosion left the leaf shinobi clutching their ears in pain. The ground shattered, and space itself seemed to distort. Raging thunder tore through everything in its path. Brat. Die already. Inoki roared, pouring more chakra into his technique. The escalating energy brightened the battlefield, illuminating the skies. The collision unleashed shockwaves that rippled outward, shaking the earth and shattering clouds. Amid the chaos, Kagami's voice rang out defiantly. Relics of the past have no place here. The black lightning shattered space as it surged upward. Crack. Inoki's old back emitted a faint sound as his chakra faltered. Not good. For just a fraction of a second, the momentum of dust release waned. Seizing the opportunity, the black lightning surged forth, obliterating the white beam entirely. Boom. A furious storm of black lightning erupted, tearing through the heavens and scattering sparks in every direction. Inoki barely dodged, his hand pressing against his back as beads of sweat rolled down his face. Damn it, his chronic back pain flared at the worst possible moment. But a technique capable of withstanding dust release. What was that? Inoki had used dust release to counter Biju Dama numerous times before. This was not something mere tailed beast chakra could achieve. To face dust release head-on, only dust release itself or space-time ninjutsu could suffice. Inoki had indeed felt spatial distortions emanating from the technique. Brat, your abilities just make me even more determined to kill you right now. Inoki began gathering chakra to unleash another dust release barrier. Meanwhile, Kagami suppressed the raging influence of the tailed beast chakra and rasped out in a hoarse voice. Inoki, for tails are my limit. If you try to make a move again, I'll unleash the full power of the 9 tails. This place, it's closer to the land of Earth, isn't it? Before I lose consciousness, I can guarantee that the 9 tails will head straight for your homeland. Do you want to see what the 9 tails power can do? Under the crimson glow of the tailed beast chakra cloak, Kagami's right hand was bloodied and mangled. The only 2 people who knew the truth were the unconscious Rashi and Minato Namikaze. If they thought he was the 9 tails Jinchuriki, so much the better. Inoki fell silent, his mind racing as he weighed the risks and benefits. You're thinking too long. Kagami roared, allowing more tailed beast chakra to pour out, as if a 5th tail was about to form. Wait. Inoki quickly dispersed his dust release, his voice urgent. In the name of the UCHIHA, I promise Iwagakure will not invade the land of fire for the next 6 months. Return Rashi to us. The violent chakra gradually subsided, still maintaining the four-tailed state. I'll return Rashi in 1 week. No way. What if you extract the four tails in the meantime? Don't play games with me. Leave now, and I'll guarantee his life. Anoki gritted his teeth. As the Tsuchikage, I've made this promise before my Iwagakure shinobi. I won't break it. The tailed beast chakra wrapped around Rashi, lifting him. We'll retreat to the border and send him back. That's my bottom line. Take it or fight. Kagami let the chakra flare up once more, exuding an even more menacing aura. Fine. Anoki took a deep breath, his gaze dark and unreadable as he stared at Kagami. Brat, tell me your name. Uchiha Kagami. I see. Uchiha Kagami. I hope we meet again. This round, you win. Anoki slowly descended into Iwagakure's formation, casting one last meaningful look at the Konoha shinobi before ordering his men to retreat. Some distance away, a young man with a large nose similar to Anoki's sidled up to him. Father, even if he is the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, can't you still handle him? The shinobi world lacked a direct understanding of the Nine-Tails' power. They knew it was strong, but 2 Kage-level opponents should be enough to handle it, right? Anoki, who had previously defeated the combined forces of the 4 and 5 tails, cast a sharp sideways glance. Do you want to beat Tsuchikage already? Think I've lived too long, huh? And no, not at all. The young man frantically waved his hands. After a moment of silence, Anoki said gravely, I'm not sure if I can handle the 9 tails. And there's no need to risk it. Once you're back, spread Uchiha Kagami's name far and wide. Tell everyone how Rashi was defeated. Huh? But Anoki's eyes narrowed as a faint cryptic smile crept onto his lips. Do you know who he reminded me of? The young man hesitated, knowing well the figure who haunted his father's memories. Uchiha Madara? Exactly. He's far from the Madara I faced back then, but he's young. Brats like him. The ones most terrified of another Uchiha Madara aren't us. It's Konoha. Anoki's patience stemmed from his desire to see whether the tensions within Konoha would erupt. Suddenly, a black hawk appeared on the horizon, flying toward the Iwagakure forces. A high-priority message? Anoki opened the scroll, his face instantly flushed with anger. Damn it! That fool. Reikage A has invaded the land of Earth. The vanguard is nearing Iwagakure. Return immediately. Impossible. Anoki had only been gone for 2 days. How could they have timed this perfectly? Danzo. It had to be that bastard leaking intel to Kumogakure. Huangtu. Stay here and wait for Rashi. Everyone else, return to the village at full speed. Muttering curses under his breath, Anoki took off, furious at the sudden invasion. At the Fire Nation border, a female medical nin carefully wrapped Kagami's wounds. His entire body was a mess, his skin corroded by tailed beast chakra, leaving him looking ghastly. The burns and abrasions are manageable, but the damage to your bones will take time to heal. As she finished bandaging him, she gave some instructions and left the tent. How are you feeling? Minato entered, concern etched across his face. Wrapped like a mummy, Kagami's muffled voice replied, still alive. What happened to Rashi? We handed him back to the Iwagakure forces, Minato sighed. Without the Sand Village situation, we could have killed the Four Tails. That would have delayed Iwagakure by at least a decade from creating a new Jinchuriki. Who gave that order? Kagami asked flatly. Danzo-sama. After a brief silence, Minato's expression grew serious. You've noticed, haven't you? Kagami chuckled lightly. He's targeting me. Once you're gone, he'll likely make his move. This was his doing, leaking intel that brought Anoki here. I've heard from Jiraiya-sensei about becoming one with the village, truly a part of Konoha. But Minato-senpai, some people in Konoha don't want the Uchiha to exist. I won't sit idly by. If I get the chance, I'll kill Shimura Danzo. He's Hiruzen-sama's closest ally. Minato wasn't concerned about Danzo's position in the village hierarchy, but rather the tangled web of relationships surrounding him. Technically, they should even refer to him as Master Danzo. Kagami remained silent, waiting for Minato's decision. If Minato chose Hiruzen's side, Kagami would show no mercy in the future. The lanterns in the tent flickered without a sound. Finally, Minato exhaled and smiled warmly. Until you're fully recovered, I won't go anywhere. I'll protect you, Kagami. By the way, care to explain your tailed beast transformation now? Minato's tone was calm, but the curiosity in his voice was unmistakable. After all, who else would know better than him? The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki was his girlfriend, not his younger brother in arms. I absorbed chakra from the four tails. You can do that? Minato furrowed his brow. Does that mean you've already taken control of the four tails? No, Kagami shook his head. Holding a tailed beast in your body is exhausting. You know that better than anyone. To Kagami, the correct way to wield a tailed beast's power was demonstrated by Sasuke Uchiha, binding them within the Susanoo as a container for their chakra. Following Naruto's approach, the whiskers on his daughter's face were evidence enough of that. And besides, he already had one unruly entity sealed inside him. Introducing another could weaken the seal, a risk he wasn't willing to take. Minato sighed, his thoughts drifting to Kushina, confined within her barrier. Kagami. I want to be Hokage. I want Kushina to live a normal life. She's carried that burden for so long. What am I supposed to do? Both Minato and Kagami had witnessed the sheer destructive power of the Nine-Tails firsthand. Having such a calamity sealed within her was akin to carrying a ticking time bomb. Kagami remained silent for a moment before asking, "What do you think about the first Hokage distributing the tailed beasts?" Minato pondered this question for a long time. Given the circumstances, it was the right decision. Hashirama-sama sought peace. The ninja world wasn't capable of global domination. Using the tailed beasts as a balance of power was logical. And it worked, didn't it? During his lifetime, the world experienced its longest period of peace in 1,000 years. Kagami chuckled. But he failed to consider that it wasn't the tailed beasts suppressing the world. It was him. Perhaps he knew, Minato sighed, but humans eventually die. The tailed beasts, however, do not. Why are you asking this all of a sudden? What would you do with the tailed beasts, Minato? The tailed beasts are necessary strategic deterrents. Since they've been bound, unless another like Hashirama-sama emerges, maintaining the status quo is essential. Take the Nine-Tails, for example. Freeing it would only bring endless disaster to Konoha. As he spoke, Minato's expression grew wistful. War, it never ends, does it? Of course not. Land, wealth, power, culture, beliefs. Konoha itself can't escape conflict. How can you expect an entire world to? Hashirama was right. Only overwhelming deterrents can keep the villages from waging war. But the tailed beasts alone aren't enough. Minato looked at Kagami with a mixture of curiosity and unease. He understood that his choice to stay had led his younger brother-in-arms to finally open up about his ideals. Through the bandages, Kagami's deep, contemplative eyes met Minato's. Human life is finite, and the tailed beast's power is insufficient. Clan. Legacy. There's no group better suited to be the world's deterrent than the Uchiha. I will become the strongest in the world. The Uchiha will evolve from being Konoha's police force to patrolling the entire ninja world. I know my clan isn't suited for politics. We'll exist solely as a force to suppress war. And all of this begins with one indomitable Uchiha, whose strength is passed down unbroken. Minato felt as if Kagami's words had gripped his heart, suffocating him. My life will end someday. Before that, I'll use my Mangekyo to pass on all my accumulated power to my successor. Only the Uchiha have this capability. Only the Uchiha can bear the malice of the world. People's minds can change, Kagami, Minato said after a long pause. Even if you keep your successors out of politics, how could they resist the allure of ruling the world? And besides, carrying all that hatred alone would be far too painful. Kagami chuckled softly. Minato, your dream is to become Hokage. Have you thought about what you'll do after you achieve it? Well, that's something to figure out when the time comes. Exactly. Kagami shifted his gaze toward the distant horizon, visible through the tent's window. This is my dream. Whether my successors are worthy of it is a question for the future. Besides, who's to say I won't live forever? Haha, there's no such thing as immortality, Minato laughed, brushing it off as a joke. But there was. The Otsutsuki clan, they were immortal. Minato stood up, smiling warmly. Thank you for sharing this with me. You should get some rest now. Just as he reached the tent's exit, he turned back with a grin. I'll support you, Kagami. I look forward to seeing you sever the world's chains of hatred. Kid, that blonde guy is really something special to you, huh? Sukuna's voice was a mix of curiosity and mockery. He's a good man with talent, Kagami replied calmly. Good people are rare in this world. Even villains enjoy befriending them. After all, he won't constantly think about killing me like you do. How cruel, kid. Sukuna's voice grew raspy and sinister. I'm not thinking about killing you. I'm thinking about eating you. Your blood, your flesh, every bone in your body. I'll savor it all. You must be suffering, Sukuna, Kagami said with a hint of mockery in his tone. Being trapped in a human body, viewing humans as mere food. You were human once, and you chose to become a curse. But you don't understand true human malice. In Sukuna's mental domain, he suddenly felt a powerful force pulling him toward the seal. What are you doing? The recent battles with Rashi and Inoki had given Kagami insight into handling tailed beast chakra and a new approach to extracting power. A blazing blade of flames materialized within the seal. Sukuna struggled with all his might against the pull, but it was futile. He was dragged to the edge of the barrier. One of his arms was forcibly yanked outside. Realizing Kagami's intentions, Sukuna began to laugh maniacally. Ha ha ha. You can't resist taking my power, can you? Take it all. Take everything. The blade descended, severing Sukuna's arm, black blood oozing from the wound. Kagami's figure hovered outside the seal, his gaze cold and unyielding. The severed arm twitched violently, attempting to attack Kagami. Boom! An overwhelming surge of ocular power pinned the arm down. Step by step, that's my principle. Don't worry, Sukuna. I'll savor your power piece by piece. A faint smile tugged at Kagami's lips as a crimson curtain fell over the seal. In the pitch-black void that remained, Sukuna's roar of anger echoed endlessly. News from the Iwagakure front lines quickly reached Orochimaru's camp. As he read the report, Orochimaru fell into deep thought. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki was supposed to be Kushina, wasn't it? No matter how muddle-headed Hiruzen-sensei might be, he'd never allow an Uchiha to become a Jinchuriki. Something unusual was clearly at play. But, defeating the Four-Tails Jinchuriki, clashing head-on with Dust Release, forcing Inoki into agreeing not to invade the Land of Fire for half a year. This kid's growth is absurdly fast. Another piece of confidential intelligence reached him as well. Danzo had ordered Minato to reinforce the Wind Country battlefield, but Minato had disobeyed. The Iwagakure front was relatively secure, yet Minato still chose not to assist Orochimaru. His intentions were clear. Orochimaru burned the confidential message from the Foundation, letting out a cold chuckle. A mere shadow hiding behind the old man. If you've chosen to stay in the dark, don't even dream of stepping into the light. After some contemplation, Orochimaru penned a letter by hand and entrusted it to his summoned white snake. At the Land of Fire border. After several days of rest, Kagami's bandages were mostly removed, except for the support brace on his arm. The newly grown skin was pale and tender, making Kagami look even more striking. A small white snake slithered up to him, delivering a scroll. Kagami-kun, greetings. I've heard of your injuries and feel deeply concerned, though I am unable to leave the front lines due to pressing conflicts. I have authorized Minato to escort you back to the village to recover. As your senior, I regret my inability to protect you. Enclosed is a scroll containing a self-developed chakra activation technique. Please study it carefully. Kagami quietly unrolled the scroll, finding Orochimaru's notes on cellular stimulation through chakra, a precursor to his later regeneration techniques. The technique was valuable, comparable to Jiraiya's secret hair needle barrage. At this stage, Orochimaru hadn't yet become involved with Danzo or been corrupted by his influence. His thoughts weren't yet deranged. Perhaps his actions now weren't as sinister as they seemed. Orochimaru likely sought to curry favor with powerful allies as part of his ambition to become Hokage. So when had Orochimaru fully descended into darkness? The exact moment was unclear, but it undoubtedly occurred after Minato was chosen as the fourth Hokage. Orochimaru might not have truly desired the position, but he yearned for Hiruzen's acknowledgement. Put simply, I don't need it, but you mustn't deny me. With his status, Orochimaru could have acquired any test subjects he wanted. Why would he target ordinary villagers from the village? And as intelligent as he was, how could he have been caught red-handed? This didn't make him a saint. Orochimaru was undoubtedly malevolent, but at least for now, he retained some restraint out of respect for his teacher. Kagami refused to rely on past knowledge to define the people he encountered in the present. As Minato had said, people change. Of course, Danzo was the exception. Since the day Tobirama died, Danzo's character had been cemented, a man consumed by discontent and regret. He was driven solely by Tobirama's ideology, desperate to prove his worth. But when Danzo inevitably realized that Hiruzen would never pass the Hokage title to him, that was when he too would spiral into madness, working alongside Orochimaru to continue their experiments on wood release and Sharingan. Kagami wouldn't allow this vile man to taint the power of the Sharingan. The time would come to rid himself of Danzo during this war. Perhaps the Rain Country would make a fitting grave for him. Before long, Minato arrived, accompanied by Kakashi. "Yo, Kagami-senpai. You're looking rough," Kakashi teased as he entered. Kagami shot him a frosty glare. "Do you think I can't kill you with one arm?" "Of course you can. Definitely can." Kakashi replied quickly, stepping closer to examine Kagami's right arm. "I heard you scared off a Noki of the two scales. That's incredible, completely outrageous. I nearly died just to withstand one of his techniques. Now the story's been twisted into me scaring him off?" Seeing Kagami's furrowed brow, Minato explained, "That's the narrative Awagakure is spreading. A new Uchiha prodigy who not only defeated the Four Tails Jinchuriki, but also forced the third Suchikage to retreat, establishing a half-year truce. You've even earned yourself a nickname. A setup for adulation, no doubt." Kagami had never taken the so-called half-year truce seriously. He had already planned to tip off Kumogakure about Awagakure's vulnerability, though someone else had beaten him to it. Curious, Kagami raised an eyebrow. "What nickname?" "Crimson Eye." Kakashi mimicked slashing with exaggerated movements, his tone filled with envy. "Such a cool nickname. Just like my dad's." Not exactly the most auspicious nickname. Massaging his temples, Kagami turned to Minato. "Why'd you bring Kakashi back?" Placing a hand on Kakashi's head, Minato replied with a smile. "After careful thought, I've decided it's not right for someone his age to be on the battlefield unless absolutely necessary." "Wait, what?" Kakashi's surprise was evident. Before coming here, Minato hadn't said anything like that. He'd even picked him up during patrol, claiming there was an important mission. "Orochimaru-sama sent word authorizing me to escort you back for recovery. I figured I'd take Kakashi along as well. I heard from Kushina that there's a girl at the academy always asking about Kakashi's whereabouts. And another Uchiha boy inquiring about you and Kakashi." Kakashi thought back. There were plenty of girls at the academy who followed him around, but the most persistent was likely Rin. As for the Uchiha boy, it could only be Obito. "But I'm already a Chunin. Minato-senpai, don't you trust my abilities?" Kakashi complained, feeling this decision undermined his capabilities. Kagami's already made a name for himself. "I need to do the same." Kagami observed Kakashi closely. His father's survival, combined with guidance from Minato and Jiraiya, had kept him from descending into darkness. Instead, he developed into a sharp-tongued, black-humored, lazy, and nonchalant young man. And a fan of Ika Paradise. If you'd seen how the original timeline unfolded, you'd be kneeling in gratitude. "Kagami, what's with that look? Don't just stay silent. That's the look of someone staring at trash, isn't it?" Kakashi was all too familiar with that gaze. He'd used it on Obito many times. Now the tables had turned. "Don't fuss, Kakashi." Kagami flicked Kakashi's forehead with his left hand, a soft tap. "You're still far from ready. Go back and play ninja games with them." What did you say?" Watching his two junior brothers bicker, Minato's face softened into a maternal smile. Placing a hand on each of their shoulders, he declared, "All right, consider this a temporary leave. Prepare yourselves." Swish. Konoha Village. It was a rare day off for Minato Namikaze, and of course, he planned to spend it with Kushina. After dropping off Kagami and Kakashi, he left with a quick, "Let's meet at the barbecue place tonight," and disappeared without a trace. Such a traitor, ditching his juniors for love, Kakashi muttered under his breath. What about you? Kagami asked with a smirk. Aren't you going to find that little girlfriend of yours from the academy? Kakashi kicked a pebble down the road, his tone indifferent. I'm not interested in little girls. Kagami chuckled. Oh really? Says the guy who reads Ica Paradise during training breaks. That's research. Kakashi protested, his voice rising. It's a deep appreciation of Jiraiya Sensei's literary genius. Also, it's all about the older women in there. His voice trailed off into a mumble. Sure, whatever you say. Kagami shrugged. But if I catch you and that perverted old man peeping at the women's bathhouse, I'll make sure the Uchiha police deal with you personally. As he turned towards the Uchiha compound, Kagami added, By the way, let Minato know I'm not joining for dinner. I'll eat at home. The sound of footsteps followed him. Then I'll eat at your place. Kakashi said shamelessly. Kagami sighed, realizing it was more effort to get rid of Kakashi than to simply let him tag along. Fine, he relented. But you're buying the groceries, and you're cooking. What? I'm the guest here. Shouldn't you at least handle the shopping? Take it or leave it. For the first time, Kakashi understood the frustration Obito and Guy must have felt dealing with him. Groceries in hand, the two entered the Uchiha household. The first thing Kakashi noticed was a boy standing on the edge of a small pond, concentrating hard. Shursui, practicing water walking, huh? Kakashi called out. Splash. The boy's focus broke, and half of his body plunged into the water. Shursui's cheeks flushed red as he glared at Kakashi. White-haired deadfish eyes. Don't interrupt me. Ah. Big brother, you're back. Ignoring the wet clothes clinging to him, Shursui leapt toward Kagami like a fish returning to water. Smack. Kagami pressed a hand to Shursui's face, keeping him at arm's length. Go rinse off and change into dry clothes first. Okay. As Shursui bounced away, Kakashi leaned closer to Kagami and muttered, Aren't you a bit too harsh on him? I didn't even start water walking until I was 4. He's only 3, right? 3.5, Kagami corrected with a shake of his head. And if he can't manage water walking at this age, he's just as useless as you. Kakashi wanted to retort that he'd been called a genius all his life, but when standing next to Kagami, those words felt hollow. In the sitting room, Kagami's grandmother smiled warmly at their return but made no move to rise. Kagami knelt by her side, gently placing a hand on her ankle. He frowned as his fingers brushed against frail, withered skin stretched taut over bone. Why didn't you tell me it's gotten this bad? He murmured. She reached out to stroke his hair, her smile soft and tender. It's fine. Shursui's learning to take care of me. Kagami bowed his head, silent. There were ways to heal her. He could even seek out Tsunade or Orochimaru if needed. But physical wounds weren't the problem here. The scars left by loss, by years of suffering, couldn't be healed with medicine or chakra. Could he use a genjutsu to erase her memories of the loved ones she'd lost? No. Kagami couldn't bring himself to do something so cruel. He could feel it. The older he grew, the more her desire to continue living faded. Grandma, he said quietly, I'll take care of myself. And I'll take care of Shursui too. If there came a day when she wanted to follow her loved ones to the other side, he wouldn't hold her back. I believe in you, she whispered. Kushina. Minato stood outside Kushina's house, holding a bouquet of vibrant red flowers that matched her hair. With a loud crash, the window on the second floor burst open. Kushina leapt out, ignoring the 10-meter drop. Catch me, Minato. Hokage's office. Hiruzen Sarutobi leaned back in his chair, taking a long drag from his pipe as he reviewed the latest reports from Orochimaru and Sarutobi Shinosuke. Defeating the Four Tails. Forcing Inoki into a ceasefire. The Uchiha Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Of course, Hiruzen didn't believe the rumors spread by Iwagakure. The Nine Tails was still safely sealed within Kushina. Based on reports from Shinosuke and Minato's own account, Kagami had developed a secret technique akin to a more advanced spirit transformation technique. Using it, he managed to extract some of the Four Tails chakra, forcing Inoki to retreat. Yet what unsettled Hiruzen wasn't Kagami's victory, it was the implications of his ability. If Kagami could take chakra from the Four Tails, could he do the same with the Nine Tails? An Uchiha with control over the Nine Tails. Hiruzen couldn't help but think of one name, Madara Uchiha. He had seen firsthand the devastation wrought during that legendary battle. Could Konoha withstand another Madara? The thought of eliminating Kagami flickered through his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. If Kagami were to die now, the Uchiha clan would undoubtedly revolt. Even those loyal to the village would never forgive such a move. Hiruzen sighed, his gaze falling on the letter Minato had sent. The closing line read, Kagami possesses the true will of fire and may bring lasting peace to the ninja world. I am beginning to believe he might be the child of prophecy Jiraiya-sensei has been searching for, one who will lead the world to change. 4 years, Jiraiya had roamed the lands, searching for the prophesied savior spoken of by the great Toad sage. Hiruzen had once believed Minato might be that savior. But now Minato placed that hope in Kagami. What should I do, sensei? Hiruzen muttered, looking up at the portraits of his predecessors hanging in the office. Due to the Sand Village adopting a defensive strategy, Orochimaru had no choice but to withdraw his forces and fortify their position after failing to make progress in the Wind Country campaign. Meanwhile, on another front of the western battlefield, Inoki and the Third Raikage, A, were locked in a fierce showdown, putting the conflict there on hold for the time being. This temporary stalemate granted Minato Namikaze a brief respite. Although he had been scheduled to return to the western battlefield, he was now placed on standby to be deployed based on the needs of other fronts. At the same time, the name Uchiha Kagami began to spread like wildfire. While part of this was thanks to Iwagakure's propaganda machine, much of it was driven by the Uchiha clan itself. Within the Uchiha, it was particularly the faction led by Kagami's uncle, Uchiha Jinchi, that capitalized on this opportunity. They spared no effort in amplifying Kagami's growing fame. Conversations around Konoha, sweet shop owner, Tetsushin-san, you're on patrol today? Uchiha Tetsushin, you've heard about Kagami defeating the Four Tails and forcing the Tsuchikage to retreat, haven't you? Florist, Shajin, would you like to check out our latest chrysanthemums? Uchiha Shajin, indeed. If Kagami had killed Inoki, we'd be sending these flowers as offerings to Iwagakure by now. Ramen stall owner, 4 bowls of ramen, is it? Uchiha patrolman, yes. 4, just like the Four Tails Kagami defeated. I hear Iwagakure's already looking for a new Jinchuriki. Summing it up, the narrative spreading throughout Konoha was that the recent easing of tensions on the Western Front was solely due to Kagami's extraordinary performance. One sunny afternoon, Uchiha Mikoto arrived at Kagami's residence, carrying her infant son, Itachi. Shursui, take Itachi to play near the entrance, Kagami said from a reclining chair in the courtyard, his eyes fixed on a scroll detailing Orochimaru's chakra activation techniques. My apologies for not offering tea, Mikoto-san. Grandmother is unwell, and I've been occupied. Mikoto smiled gently, stealing a glance at Shursui holding the baby before responding. You're too formal, Kagami. It's I who have intruded. Why are you here? Kagami's tone was indifferent, his attention still on the scroll. Mikoto hesitated before speaking, her voice carrying a hint of worry. You've probably heard the rumors spreading around the village. Fugaku has asked me to request that you and Jinbei-san restrain the clan members. Restrain them. Kagami finally looked up, his gaze piercing as it landed on Mikoto. Before marrying Fugaku, Mikoto had been a Uchiha elite, a 3-tomo Sharingan user known for her strength. But under Kagami's gaze, she instinctively averted her eyes, unable to hold his steady, cold stare. Do you know why Fugaku made this request? Kagami asked, his voice calm but firm. Taking a deep breath, Mikoto steeled herself. This didn't feel like a conversation with a junior, but rather with a commanding elder. There is tension between the Uchiha clan and the village leadership. Fugaku has been working hard to ease that tension, and there has been progress. After all, wasn't the fact that Hiruzen allowed Jiraiya-sensei to take you under his wing a gesture of reconciliation between the village and the Uchiha? Both Fugaku and the Hokage are striving for unity. You've directly benefited from these efforts. Why, then, are you choosing to distance yourself from the village? Mikoto's voice rose slightly. You are a member of the Uchiha clan, but you're also a Konoha shinobi. You should not be confined by the narrow perspective of clan loyalty. The Uchiha cannot hope to stand against the village. Do you not see that? Mikoto's words tumbled out in a rush, as if afraid she'd lose her nerve if she stopped. Kagami's expression didn't waver. His gaze remained steady and unyielding. as if staring into the depths of an icy abyss. "And what authority do you claim to speak to me?" he asked quietly. As the wife of the Uchiha clan leader and the head of the Konoha police force, representing the Hokage, the villagers, and the Uchiha clan, Mikoto replied, though her voice wavered. Kagami let out a quiet laugh, devoid of warmth. "I'll say this once," he began, his tone calm but carrying an edge that sent shivers down Mikoto's spine. "The only reason Fugaku still holds the title of clan leader is because I have allowed it. You do not represent the Uchiha. And I couldn't care less about the Hokage's or the villagers' opinions." Kagami rose slightly from his reclined position, his aura shifting dramatically. It felt as if a monstrous dragon had awakened, its oppressive presence pressing down on Mikoto. "You should be grateful you are an Uchiha," Kagami said, his voice quiet but laced with deadly intent. "If you weren't, I would have killed you by now." The sheer force of Kagami's killing intent hit Mikoto like a tidal wave. Her body trembled uncontrollably, and she couldn't muster a response. Kagami turned back to his scroll, dismissing her presence entirely. "This is your only warning," he said coldly. "Do not bring such foolishness before me again. You should be grateful for my mercy this time." Mikoto's pale face turned even whiter as she staggered to her feet. She knew Kagami's words were not empty threats. I understand. Forgive me, Kagami-san. I'll take my leave." She hurriedly exited, clutching her son to her chest, as if escaping from the den of a predator. Shursui, holding Itachi in his arms, tilted his head curiously. "Brother, did you and Mikoto-ne argue?" Kagami turned a page in his scroll, not even glancing up. "Shursui, what do you think about the relationship between the Uchiha and the village?" Shursui hesitated, surprised by the question. Kagami studied his younger cousin, remembering the tragic path Shursui had once walked. In another timeline, Shursui had faltered, choosing to end his life rather than confront the harsh reality of the Uchiha's fate. He had handed over his Mangekyo Sharingan to Itachi, hoping to prevent conflict, only to die without ever realizing the truth. That the village leadership, led by Hiruzen and Danzo, had no intention of resolving tensions with the Uchiha. They didn't want peace with the Uchiha, they wanted to erase them. "Brother, Shursui began, but Kagami cut him off. "Think carefully, Shursui. A decision will have to be made one day." Shursui beamed with his usual innocent smile. "I don't know. But I do know one thing. No matter what decision you make, I'll always stand by your side, brother." Kagami chuckled lightly. "You're as indecisive as ever. Well, Grandma already told me ages ago, just listen to brother, and everything will be fine. Then listen carefully. If you can't master water walking in 3 days, forget about leaving the house afterward." "What? That's so unfair." With a pout, Shursui shuffled toward the pond, glancing back at every step. His thoughts drifted. "Itachi is so cute. I just want to play with him." In the Hokage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi puffed on his pipe while Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki stood before him. Minato wore an apologetic expression, scratching the back of his head. Meanwhile, Kushina stood tall, arms crossed. "What's the problem?" "Can't I go on missions with Minato?" she demanded. Minato shifted uncomfortably, trying to soften her blunt tone. Hiruzen sighed, looking down at the report in his hand. "You're saying you want to leave the village for missions?" Kushina raised her chin. "That's right. Why not?" "You're the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Kushina," Hiruzen reminded her, setting the report down. "So what?" she shot back. "I've got full control over the Nine-Tails now. Keep your voice down." Minato interjected nervously, glancing around. Hiruzen's brows furrowed as he regarded her with concern. "How about this? I'll grant you more freedom to move around the village. But leaving it? Not enough." Kushina interrupted, pointing a finger at him. Hiruzen turned to Minato for support, but the young ninja averted his gaze, pretending not to notice. "Fine, Hokage-sama." Minato finally spoke up. "I've honed my sealing techniques to ensure Kushina's safety on the field." Hiruzen pinched the bridge of his nose. "You do realize, Kushina, that your presence in the village is a deterrent against enemy invasions? As long as you're here, no other village dares to act recklessly against Konoha." Kushina tilted her head thoughtfully, then grinned. "Don't be silly. Everyone's afraid of you, old man. Not me." The Hokage almost choked on his pipe smoke. Still, Kushina continued, puffing her chest, if you're getting old, why not just stay behind and let me handle it? I'll be the village's first female Hokage someday, you know. Hiruzen studied her for a moment before exhaling a long plume of smoke. She reminded him of her younger self, the girl who boldly declared her dream in front of her classmates. Hiruzen wanted every Konoha ninja to aspire to the Hokage's ideals, to unite under its banner. Even Uchiha Kagami, he thought. If that boy sought the Hokage title to unite the village, he might accept it. But Kagami was different. His attitude toward Konoha civilians was cold, disdainful even. How could the oppressed become the oppressors? Hiruzen mused bitterly. The old Hokage looked at Minato and Kushina, and a thought struck him. Perhaps they could form a bond with Kagami. Taking a deep breath, Hiruzen made a decision that Danzo Shimura and the elders would undoubtedly oppose. Once Kagami recovers, you three will form a team, he declared, meeting their gazes. You'll respond to emergencies across all battlefields. What? Kushina's shout echoed through the room. Hiruzen raised a hand to silence her. However, I will assign an experienced ninja to guide you. That's my condition. Kushina hesitated for a moment, then broke into a wide grin. Deal. Old man, you won't regret this. She grabbed Minato's arm and dragged him out. Let's go. We need to check on that brat Kagami and make sure he's not slacking off. Minato shot the Hokage an apologetic smile before being hauled away like a reluctant accessory. That evening, Hiruzen left his office and ventured deep into the Konoha forest. Beside a quiet mountain spring, he waited. Before long, a gaunt, unassuming man emerged from the shadows, kneeling respectfully. Lord Hokage, the man greeted. Hiruzen regarded him with a mix of admiration and sorrow. Kosuke Maraboshi, he said after a pause. There's a mission only you can handle. I'll gladly take on any task, no matter how dangerous, Maraboshi replied earnestly. Don't be so eager to throw your life away, Hiruzen chided gently. He took a deep breath before continuing. I'm forming a team, Minato Namikaze, Kushina Uzumaki, and Uchiha Kagami. Hiruzen deliberately revealed Kushina's identity as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, normally a top-secret fact. I need you to join them as their mentor, especially to guide Kagami. Hiruzen trailed off, searching for the right words. He's an incredible young man, Maraboshi offered. Yes, Hiruzen agreed with a faint smile. Incredible, but also complicated. The Hokage's eyes drifted toward the village lights in the distance. Maraboshi, that boy is disconnected from the village. I need you to be a bridge between him and Konoha. If he can become like his grandfather Kagami, I could rest easy in the afterlife, knowing I've upheld the will of the first and second Hokages. Maraboshi bowed deeply. I'll do my best, Lord Hokage. Northern front of the Land of Fire. Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin, was assigned as the overall commander. With the tense situation across the battlefronts, he couldn't leave the Land of Fire and was tasked with fortifying its defenses. One particular reason for his location was its proximity to the Land of Hot Springs. The famed Land of Hot Baths. Though not one to shirk his duties during war, Jiraiya couldn't help but dream of the post-war era, envisioning himself relaxing amidst the steam, rejuvenating his weary spirit. Inside the command tent, Jiraiya meticulously examined the defenses along the border. His sharp eyes scanned the map, occasionally lingering over a small corner marked Land of Hot Springs. End the war quickly, he murmured. I need some inspiration for my next book. Suddenly, a panicked ninja rushed into the tent without waiting for permission. Jiraiya-sama. The ninja's face was pale, his voice trembling. The sensory unit has detected an enormous chakra presence near the front line. Far beyond that of any ordinary ninja. It might be a tailed beast's Jinchuriki. Jiraiya's brows furrowed. Which one? Typically, unless they were like Rashi or Han, Jinchuriki known to unleash their tailed beast's power frequently, most villages kept their Jinchuriki identities secret, especially the Cloud. Their tailed beasts were said to be sealed within the Six Paths tools for years. Is it the Two Tails? Or the Eight Tails? Jiraiya pondered the possibility of the Cloud finding suitable hosts for their tailed beasts. Or could it be someone from the stone? He shook his head. No time for speculation. I'll go check. Swiftly gathering his gear and scrolls, Jiraiya issued orders. Report this to the village. I'll investigate myself. By the time Jiraiya arrived at the scene, it was a disaster. The stationed Leaf Ninja were either injured or killed, the battlefield littered with debris. Whoosh! A kunai suddenly shot toward him, aimed directly at his face. Clang! Jiraiya deflected the kunai with a casual swipe and shifted his gaze toward a shadowed figure. Emerging from the trees was a team of cloud ninjas. At their lead stood a tall man with an eye patch covering his left eye, his demeanor stern and imposing. "So it's Jiraiya," the man said, his tone calm but firm. "It's been a while." Jiraiya's expression darkened. "Dodai, are you clouds trying to break the peace treaty?" Dodai, a close advisor to the Raikage and a master of lava release, was akin to Jiraiya standing in the leaf. His presence here could only mean one thing. "The treaty? You mean the one the leaf ignores whenever it suits them?" Dodai retorted, his voice even. "You've been slaughtering stone ninja despite your agreements." Before Jiraiya could respond, another voice boomed. "Enough talk, Dodai. Let's get straight to it." A muscular young man with dark skin and short blonde hair grinned broadly. "I heard the Leaf's Uchiha are great for awakening the Sharingan. Hand over a few, especially that Uchiha Kagami brat, and we'll leave." Jiraiya clenched his fists, taking a step back. "Demanding my students outright." He wouldn't tolerate anyone targeting his comrades, especially his students. His gaze sharpened, and his hands flew into a flurry of hand seals. Dodai immediately noticed the shift and shouted, "Everyone spread out." Jiraiya slammed his palm to the ground. Summoning Jutsu. A massive plume of smoke erupted, shaking the ground beneath their feet. When the smoke cleared, an enormous toad loomed over the battlefield, a giant pipe in its mouth and a short blade at its side. "Oi, Jiraiya," grumbled the toad. "You know this is my lunch hour, don't you?" "Sorry, Gamabunta," Jiraiya apologized, his voice tense. "The situation's urgent. Enemies are strong." Gamabunta took in the scene, his large eyes narrowing at the figures before him. His pipe tilted slightly as he exhaled. "Tisk, fine. But you owe me sake after this." Jiraiya's focus turned to the opposing forces, particularly a figure exuding a sinister, overwhelming chakra. His eyes narrowed as he studied the man. The green and white-haired ninja with a purple marking on his right cheek stood out. The aura surrounding him felt ominous and unnatural. That chakra. Jiraiya's stomach churned. He knew exactly what this was. "Gamabunta," he called out, his voice grim. "Use oil." "Got it." Dodai felt his heart sink as he sensed the massive chakra buildup. "Prepare yourselves," he bellowed to his squad. But before they could act, Gamabunta's cheeks swelled, and a torrent of oil burst forth, immediately followed by Jiraiya's fire release. Fire style, Toad Oil Flame Bullet. The combined technique unleashed a blazing inferno, the searing heat and explosive force obliterating everything in its path. Trees ignited and crumbled instantly. The intense flames roared, consuming the battlefield. "Fall back." A younger ninja named B yelped in a strange rhythm, grabbing his companion as they dodged the advancing flames. "IB, stay focused," yelled the muscular blonde ninja, whose excitement was clear. "This is our chance to make a name for ourselves." Dodai quickly formed seals and spat out a protective barrier. Lava release, rubber wall. The elastic membrane stretched before them, shielding the cloud forces from the incoming flames. But the pressure was immense, and the barrier trembled under the combined attack's might. "Step back, Dodai," a cold, detached voice rang out. The cloud shinobi glanced back to see the green-haired man enveloped in a crimson chakra cloak. His eyes gleamed with a sharp focus as the tailed beast chakra surged around him. He spoke calmly. "This is no longer a fight for ordinary shinobi." A clawed, chakra-formed hand emerged, swatting away the flames with ease. The sheer power of the Eight Tails Jinchuriki created a gust that extinguished the raging fire. Jiraiya, watching from atop Gamabunta's head, grimaced as he counted the number of tails behind the man. 4, 5, 8, he muttered, his throat tightening. "It's the 8 tails. This just got a lot more complicated."
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.